I love my people, but hate how they act. Saying they love their history, but they're calling it black. Won't overstand that, the law won't back your claim as African with a name like Jack. To them, you're either dumb or your brain's numb. White trash are the niggas, so you're just a bum. Stateless and frontin' with your faking nation. NAACP founded by Jews of Satan. Hebrew has no J, Harlem Jews were Moors, and all the knowledge he uses against you is yours. From the dollar pyramid to the compass and squares, popes using more heads, but you saying it's theirs. Begging for reparations with crocodile tears. Calling yourself black, become property of theirs. Clear the ignorance, get your mind better. Like Master Adam Moore's humbled Sarnetta. New member of humanity, they are clever. Got God stuck in earth using Gucci sweaters. Got goddess getting nails done and doing slave runs with 2 ears pierced, but won't call him your gay son. Dying for lack of knowledge, only that would save him. Not rapping blood clot dummies played on the stations. They need to wake up and stop acting pagan. They need to get their thinking added up and not layman. Don't think it's hate, it's tough love. Don't think it's peace with a white dove. Don't think it's truth, then show me the lie. I won't hold my breath waiting, cause I might die. Don't think it's hate, it's tough love. Don't think it's peace with a white dove. Don't think it's truth, then show me the lie. I won't hold my breath waiting, cause I might die. I love my people but hate their ways. Always doing time as if crime pays. Crime pays them who are not your friends, but they're making conversations, taking you to the pen where they started human cattle. They call shadow. Don't know law, you're fighting a losing battle. Then you're gonna say you didn't know when you lose. The judge will say ignorance of law is no excuse. I'm going to black knowledge bookstores to find all types of titles but none for law. Every book verifies your slave status and fraud. Misrepresentation, cause you're actually Moors. North America is Northwest Africa, I mix them before recording tracks. When I'm spelling, I hex them. Natural like being or blinking or being your true God self, not running or fleeing, not thinking inferior, superior like the lake. Moorish America's frontin' black, got burned at the stake. African slaves have no constitution, so no state. Just ask and check the Dred Scott case. Don't think it's hate, it's tough love. Don't think and get Billy clubbed by the club of Rome. Don't think you have to go back home. You are the builders of Olmec, heads of stone. Don't think it's hate, it's tough love. Don't think and get Billy clubbed by the club of Rome. Don't have to go back home. You are the builders of Olmec, heads of stone.
We're just gonna say our prayer. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation. By night and by day, to His holy prophet, Moorish Islam. Before we get started, we want to read our letters to be read every meeting by the Prophet Moorish. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical, agitating speeches while at their work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure of obeying these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any group, any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their cardon button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the Prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet, Noble Juali. And if the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their Prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the Prophet through the will of Allah to redeem His people from their sinful ways. Noble Juali. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all. and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people on our side of the nation that claim it was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme they can to disqualify me so they themselves may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is still the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I Noble Drew Ali. And that is why many hearts have been turned to stone, many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your true and speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. So those are the letters that I read every meeting in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I see we had some new people today, so if you have any questions or whatever, feel free to just throw them up. As soon as it comes to you, just put them up. If you have any immediate questions, you can ask those as well. So what we're going to be going through today is this Black Identity Extremist FBI bulletin, and going through some of that just to put things in the right perspective, because the perspective that majority of people have about this, what do we call it? This intelligence assessment by the FBI, Counter-Terrorism Division. The people who are furthest away from Moorish nationality are seeing this as a thing that's pushing them further away from what it is, because it's from one of the main issues that we recognize with it is one of the main issues we recognize is that it's addressing black identity. right? And when you go through the document, it's making a lot of reference to Moors in here, right? Now, one of the things that we want to put on the record with regard to this is that the FBI, who put this assessment together and put it out, don't think that they don't know who the Moors are. Like, don't think in your mind that how Negro, black, colored people think about Moors is that the world thinks about Moors like that. How people might say, whoever they are, debating the Moors, like, don't even think that the world thinks of the Moors like how those people do, right? So, before we go into that, let's just quickly outline something. This is federal surveillance of African Americans, 1920 to 1984. 1920 to 1984, and it's gdc.gale, G-A-L-E, gdc.gale.com, and you're going to federal surveillance of African Americans, 1920 to 1984. Summary: between the early 1920s, so between the early 1920s and the early 1980s, the Justice Department and its Federal Bureau of Investigation engaged in widespread investigation of those deemed politically suspect. Prominent along with the targets of this sometimes coordinated, sometimes independent surveillance were aliens, members of various protest groups, socialists, communists, pacifists, militant labor unionists, ethnic or racial nationalists, and outspoken opponents of the policies of the incumbent presidents. An intuitive platform makes it all cross-searchable by subject or collection. Black Americans of all political persuasions were subject to federal scrutiny, harassment, and prosecution. The FBI enlisted black confidential special informants to infiltrate a variety of organizations. Hundreds of documents in this collection were originated by such operatives. The reports provide a wealth of detail on Negro radicals and their organizations that can be found nowhere else. So the Negro radicals is in quotes, so you know that they're not talking about Negroes. You know that there's other things that they can also apply, but for the sake of FBI bulletin or FBI whatever, they're gonna say Negroes. But remember, they were talking about aliens, members of various protest groups, socialists, communists, pacifists, militant labor, whatever. Now, when we go through the list of all these people who the FBI has been under surveillance, none of them claim racism is why they're under surveillance by them. The only people who claim that is Negro, black, colored people who don't deal with nationality, they don't deal with law, international law. All they deal with is emotionalism, feelings, and we'll say a compromised history. They don't deal with the actual factual what the history is. They deal with whatever they think history is, right? Because, you know, everything that you're going to use to prove to the Negro, black, colored people that, well, this is what it is in the history, they'll say, oh no, that's the white man's book, or he didn't, you know, and he can't be the one that we're going to get the facts from, right? But the FBI is a European organization or whatever like that, and they're going to go with that to say that they don't want to be Moors. But when we present the law dictionary to them and say, well, the white man said that, here's what this means in law, they're not going to go with it. They're going to avoid going into the etymology dictionary to see that black means pale. So that you can't really identify dark-skinned people with the term black, according to dictionary definition. But again, you know, that's the white man stuff. So they're not going to use that. But at the same time, they're going to bring this FBI bulletin, they're going to make videos on YouTube or whatever, calling out Moors, saying Moors are sovereign citizens, look what the FBI has, something on the Moors, whatever like that, to try to make people not get down with their nationality and birthrights as being Moors. Now, a thinking person would not pay them any attention. They would realize that these people are black-hearted hypocrites. If they're going to say, the white man's the devil, kill the white man, but they're not going to slap their mom for having a European Jesus in the house, they're hypocrites. Open hypocrites. And they want people to accept that hypocrisy as a reality. Right? COINTELPRO. This collection consists of a select group of small microfilm products. These include the following: COINTELPRO, Black Nationalist Hate Groups. FBI Counterintelligence Program File contains details of the Bureau's attempts to expose, disrupt, and neutralize groups that J. Edgar Hoover perceived as threatening to national security. The material in this file spans COINTELPRO's existence from 1956, so COINTELPRO, 1956, right, to 1971. FBI file on A. Philip Randolph, an outspoken black labor leader, is perhaps best remembered as the organizer of the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters. He was elected to vice president of the AFL-CIO in 1955. This file includes memos and correspondence, most dating from the 1940s to the early 1960s, right? So 56, 1940s. FBI on Atlanta child murders, 1980. This is all the stuff in the FBI file. FBI files on Black Panther Party, North Carolina, 1968. FBI files on the Committee for Public Justice. The Committee for Public Justice, an affiliate of the ACLU, was formed in 1970 to voice concern over periods of political repression it perceived the nation to be entering. After the CPJ denounced the FBI, the Bureau enlisted conservative media figures to help neutralize the impact of committee's findings. This file includes after Hoover's death in 1972, including efforts by directors L. Patrick Gray and Clarence M. Kelly. So 1970. Hey, round of applause for the glass there. Yeah.
I could see.
Moors doing their great missionary work.
Yeah, I do. I do, Ken.
FBI file
Is that right?
on Elijah Muhammad.
Good?
Born Elijah Poole. Remember, this is the FBI, right? Born Elijah Poole in 1897, the Messenger of Allah assumed leadership of the movement later known as the Nation of Islam in 1934. The file contains material the FBI collected to show immoral, subversive, or criminal activity in order to discredit him as the leader of the Nation of Islam. So that would have been 34. File on the Highlander Folk School. The Highlander Folk School was established in Montego, Tennessee in 1932 by Miles Horton, a native Tennessean, who wanted to provide an educational center in the South for training of rural and industrial leaders. The school initially educated union workers and in the 1940s began accepting African Americans into its program, and emphasis shifted toward aiding southern rural workers. This change raised suspicions among the conservative groups, and eventually the school's charter was revoked because the state law required private schools to be racially segregated. This FBI file, spanning 40 years, is rich in school-produced materials, local news clippings. It will interest labor historians, civil rights scholars, and researchers investigating post-war, right? FBI file on Ku Klux Klan, 78. FBI file Mississippi burning, 64. FBI file on Lemuel Penn. FBI file on the Muslim Mosque, Incorporated, founded by Malcolm El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. FBI file on the NAACP. FBI file on the National Negro Congress. FBI file on the Organization of Afro-American Unity. FBI file on Paul Robeson. FBI file on Jesse Jackson. FBI file on Roy Wilkins. FBI file on Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. FBI file on Thurgood Marshall. FBI file on W.E. Du Bois. Communist infiltration of the Southern Christian leadership investigation. File on Malcolm X, file on Marcus Garvey. And of course, file on Moorish Science Temple of America. Now, when we look at the timeline, when they say investigated or FBI looking into the activities of so-called dark-skinned people, we're going from 1920s to right now today. When we look at 1920s, what comes up for 1920s is Marcus Garvey, NAACP, which would be Du Bois and all them, and Moorish Science Temple of America. Right. So when the FBI comes out in 2017 and says that they've been doing, you know what I mean, this surveillance and whatever like that, and they come to the realization that there's people who have black identities that are extremists, and they need to, you know, we have to keep an eye on them. Know that it has nothing to do with, this right here. Garveyites, or UNIA, NAACP, or MSTA. It doesn't have to do with MSTA because since the 1920s, they infiltrated this, and they don't see that as a threat, right? Since the 1920s, they infiltrated this, they don't see them as a threat. NAACP is still around today, right? So clearly they weren't a threat to the system. Being that they're still around today and they've been under FBI surveillance since the 1920s and they're still around, clearly they're getting a pass. Clearly they're able to do whatever it is that they want to do because they're still around. They have to still have infiltrated people in that for them to still be around today and keeping our people in the passive position that our people are in. Marcus Garvey, we already know what happened to him, right? $3 mail fraud, deportation, you know what I mean, lost everything that he had, and the members, again, continued on with the program, Universal Negro Improvement Association, but because of infiltration, the original mission was distorted after the infiltration. Moorish Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali assassinated in 1929, by Moors who had set him up kill another Moor, set Noble Drew Ali up, then Noble Drew Ali did it. Him get arrested, them realizing that they don't have anything on him, but letting him go into the same hands of the Moors who set him up. And then because he was put into the hands of the Moors that set him up, the best thing to do was just get him out the way. Which is why we read the letters to be read every meeting, so that people can have the perspective that when Noble Drew Ali was around, there were people around him at that time trying to get him out, and he knew that. Right? He knew about the infiltration. There's literature of, people literally trying to kill Noble Drew Ali, whether poison him and he realized, that, and not eat the food. Find out later poison's in there. Being at temple meetings and assailant comes to the temple to assassinate him, and Moors are just watching, see what happens, because he's the prophet. So if he's the prophet, then he must be able to just throw some juju out or something like that, stop this guy who's an assailant or whatever, right? So when they get him out the way, it stagnates the Moorish Science Temple of America mission, which was to tell people to study and enforce the Constitution for the United States of America, because that is the rules and regulations that you're going to be able to hold these Europeans to while they're in land that's not theirs. By them suppressing that, people start to enforce the Constitution, so the Europeans start making up stuff now to say that this is the law. And then people go with it because of the assumption that they're the government. When clearly, if there's no way that some Europeans can go to China, set up whatever there, and then now all the Chinese are going to the European office to get something instead of going to the Chinese one. But here they can do that because of occupying. Here they can do that because you have these black identity extremists who really aren't black, they're Moors. And the reason why they're extreme is because everybody knows that they're Moors. The FBI even put it out. Called the thing black identity extremists, but the whole document, all they're talking about is Moors. They're not talking about black guys in here. Why is it so much reference to Moors in a black identity document? Because the black identity doesn't have there's not a real identity called black. So this thing should be filled up with, if this is a black identity extremist document, this should be filled up with all the black groups. All the groups that are dealing with something having to do with black anything should be in here, right? So, I'm going to go from the beginning. Executive summary. The FBI assesses it is very likely black identity extremist perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated, retaliatory, lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence. Now, as well, keep in mind of King Alfred Plan. And in King Alfred Plan, there being a outline of what's going to happen over an 8-hour span if a race war kicks off, right? So in quote-unquote state of emergency and it's a race war, which is where they're going with this, right? The, local police is going to get with the whatever police, and the police will get with the military, and then the military is going to be the ones who are going to be in control of policing. And then anybody who's quote unquote black that has a position in government or whatever like that, they're getting taken off. This is in their, if this is in their plan, executive order 110490, King Alfred Plan. The FBI assesses it is very likely this increase began following the 9th of August 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the subsequent grand jury 2014 declination to indict the police officers involved. Now, Michael Brown is what they're saying is the kickoff, right, to this so-called black identity extremists going nuts and wanting to kill police because, you know, after this dude's killing is when people started, you know, really going at police or whatever. Now, talk about Missouri, we're talking about somebody getting murdered by police, then you have to deal with the Dred Scott case. And the Dred Scott case putting on the record that the quote-unquote white man doesn't have to respect any type of laws or whatever protecting the black man. Because in the Dred Scott case, the plaintiff was in error. The plaintiff was in error because he's saying that he's free, but his name's Scott. Now, if you're free, you can't have a slave name. Our people today, classified as Negro, black, colored people, they would say they're free. But if they have the name of the oppressor, then they're really not free. No matter how much money they got, no matter how big their house is, how much rooms it's got, how much cars they got, like we talk about shoeboxes to the ceiling or whatever like that, doesn't matter, they're still a slave. Because as soon as they die, all the stuff that they got, state, province, whoever is coming to get it. Right? That's just how it's going to go. No different than when we look back at our foremothers and forefathers who were playing the slave game or whatever. Majority of them either lost their property or gave their property to the church instead of giving it to the family. And they willingly did that. They didn't do that because of pressure. They willingly said, oh yeah, we have 50 acres or whatever, but we're going to donate this to the church instead of share this out amongst the family. Right? But then when you talk to, you know, Asians, whoever else, they're not playing those ones. They're not playing give up their stuff to the state. They'll keep that in the family before they give that up. Right? This is something that only our people do. Right? And again, the reason why is because name denotes possession. So when we say, you know, we go back to kindergarten and mom puts the stuff in the lunchbox, writes your name in the lunchbox, because name denotes possession, piece of work, right? Name denotes possession. And most of the times, well, you get bus ass if you come home with somebody else's lunchbox. Because your name's in it. Like, how are you bringing home somebody else's stuff? It doesn't even look like your stuff. How are you bringing home something else? Name denotes possession. So, the Dred Scott case proved that don't expect this European to respect you if you have a slave status. It's just automatic. It shouldn't even be something to think about. As soon as you hear people talking about African Americans or black people or Negroes or Africans or whatever are under whatever from the police and all that stuff, automatically, Dred Scott case is where your mind's supposed to go. Because that stuff doesn't happen to people who have, you don't hear chins talking about police brutality. Ever, ever. You don't see them marching up and down because police killed them. They're quote unquote a minority. How come they don't have that problem that we have? Sri Lankans. You don't see Haram Pujat Singh or whatever talking about police killed somebody. We're mourning them. Why? Because if anything happens to those people, international law kicks in right away. None of the local stuff is going on. Immediately these people are going to get the call from whoever, and then they're going to get their little payout. It's not going to make the news or nothing like that. Anything happens to them. But as soon as something happens to our people, it's just a long, drawn-out thing going on for years and marching for years and picketing and more people dying and nothing happening and more people dying and these people still doing the same routine over and over again. So FBI said, well, since these people are run by fear, that's what we'll use in order to control them. The best way to control a slave is to make the slave fear not being a slave. Right? Make the slave have the mentality that to be a slave is a benefit. And to be free, you don't want to be free, because if you're free, now you have to take responsibility, and then something could happen to you out there, you know what I mean? Like, you know, if you're not saying that you're free, if you're not taking a free position, right? If we're not taking a free position, then clearly there's issues with the ones who are the slaves, right? And again, like Harriet Tubman did, we would have freed many more if only they knew that they were slaves, right? They're on the plantation, but they don't know that they're slaves. This is how out of it our people are. And again, we're using the example of the FBI bulletin stressing the fact that the so-called black identity extremist people are Moors. They're not black, Negro colored or whatever. Because the whole thing is talking about Moors in here. Why would the black identity extremist bulletin be talking about Moors? And then the Negro black colored people, well, because Moors are black, that's why they're doing it like that. It's not because Moors are black, because there's no such thing as black. You're an extremist if you have a black identity, because your real identity is Moors, right? So they go on. On the 7th of July 2006, Micah Johnson ambushed and shot 11 law enforcement officers, killing 5 in downtown Dallas during a First Amendment protected protest before being ultimately killed by police. The 5 deceased officers were quote-unquote white. The planned public event was protesting recent officer-involved shootings of African Americans in Louisiana and Minnesota. Based on Johnson's journal writings and statements to police, he appeared to have been influenced by BIE ideology. Right? So this is a frame of mind now that they're talking about. Right? The ideology the black identity extremists black identity extremist is an ideology. During the standoff with the police, Johnson told police negotiators he was upset about the recent police shootings and white people, and expressed a desire to kill white people, especially white officers. Johnson searched and liked social media pages of BIE and black separatist groups and had been ousted from a local BIE group for being too radical, according to an open source news article. Black on the 23rd of October, keep in mind this is quote unquote black separatists. Zale Thompson attacked 4 white New York Police Department officers in Queens with a hatchet. 1 officer received injuries to the arm and the 2nd officer received an injury to the side of his head. 2 remaining NYPD officers at the scene shot and killed Thompson, according to open source reporting. According to open source reporting, Thompson was angered after a recent spat of deaths at the hands of police. In his own writings, Thompson advocated for armed struggle against the oppressors, mass revolt against the U.S. social, economic, and political systems, which he perceived to be white-dominated. He also described the United States as a beast and called for chopping off its heads, hands, and feet. NYPD observed tattoos on Thompson's body that indicated he was affiliated with a black separatist extremist group, and pocket litter indicated he may have been associated with another black separatist group, according to law enforcement reportings. Right? Again, this theme of black separatists, and not only that these people have an ideology, but they're actually acting on this ideology. This is not just something that, you know what I mean, they are just meeting about and thinking about in a circle or whatever. They're actually going out and they're implementing some of these things, right? Now, convergence of BIE and Moorish sovereign citizen ideology very likely leads to violence against law enforcement officers. Convergence of BIE, the black identity extremists, and the Moorish sovereign citizen ideology, the merging of these two very likely leads to violence against law enforcers. The FBI assesses it is very likely a few of the BIEs who have targeted law enforcement since 2004 were influenced by more than one ideological perspective. The FBI judges it is very likely in 4 of the 6 BIE attacks against law enforcement in 2014, the perpetrators were motivated by a mix of BIE ideology and Moorish sovereign citizen extremist ideology, a category of SCE ideology. The FBI assesses that it is very likely BIE adoption of a Moorish SCE identity reinforced a sense of disenfranchisement from society and a perception that the criminal justice system is unjust. Now, if sovereign citizen ideology applies to all Moors, right, then there wouldn't be all those proclamations from all these different states talking in favor of the Moors and not mentioning sovereign citizens in their proclamations that they talk about the Moors, which again was around 2011, so it's not even something far that they got to check, right? So clearly when they talk about this idea of sovereign citizen Moorish groups or whatever, they're talking about specific Moors. They're not generalizing. Like how Negro, black, colored people are going to generalize and say, well, they saw one Moor do whatever, so that applies to all Moors. Right? That's not what it is. Right? Our people look at it from that perspective because of their lack of information as to what it is. You know what I mean? So again, these are specific Moors now. This is not across the board. So when especially when FBI or quote-unquote law enforcement comes out with things like this, know that these same people have had personal interaction with Moors and didn't even classify them under the Moorish sovereign whatever. That's in the BIE. Right? It didn't happen. They interacted with them. There was a positive interaction, and FBI went about their business. They couldn't give a shit what these Moors are doing. Why? Because they didn't follow the status quo of the Moorish sovereign citizen Moors. They asked them certain questions. They weren't on that. Then leave those Moors alone. They're over there. So we want Moors who are in tune with their nationality and birthrights to be sure that FBI already knows who we are. They already know the true faithful Moors that are dealing with what's supposed to be dealt with. The extremist Moors who are out there, for example, and again, you know, these are things that are from if they're going to make this public, we know that this is doctrine. Right? We know that they put their own little stuff in there because, again, their campaign, like we read in Noble Jwali's writing, is to try every weak mind. Their duty out here with our people is to try all the weak minds so that the weak minds could go down with the ship. And what they would call that depopulation. Right? Gentrification, whatever. If they're not providing anything to society, then they're useless to society. If they're not doing anything to make society better, and they're dragging it down, then they're useless to society. And if they are in the position of Dred Scott, which makes them property of society, then trust society is going to deal with them. Whether it's every year build a new jail and have it filled before the year is done, right? Whether it's send mercenaries out under the guise of we're law enforcement, but when we, you know, like people who are on the inside know that whenever they have G20 meetings, whenever they have some type of sports or whatever, whenever they have anything, they're not just hiring police. They're telling civilians come get jobs. And they throw a uniform on them and send them out and let them be riot police. They give them like a 1 day or a 1 week waiver or whatever, that they have the authority of police for this week to be able to go out there and kick people's ass or whatever. Right? In them doing that, those people now become mercenaries. Like we know people that when they wanted riot police, they would go to the college school police program and take students from that to be riot police. If it's a weekend thing or whatever. They're not going to go expense themselves, go hire some people. They'll just take students who are in those programs, right? And make them be the riot police, right? Because again, now, if something happens, it doesn't fall on the department. It doesn't fall on the chief. It doesn't fall on the whatever. It falls on those individuals. Which is why when you hear Moors speak about this idea of engaging these people that call themselves law enforcement, we always ask for the highest one at the scene. We don't want to deal with the beat cops, because we don't really know if they really are that. They could just be some mercenaries with a uniform on. Bring the top guy. We'll talk with him. Right? And again, there's examples of Moors. Get them pulled over, telling them, you guys need to call the superior. Them not doing it. Moor going on his phone by himself calling 911, talking about, well, there's whoever here, you need to send somebody, and then they send somebody. And the person that they sent is telling the so-called police people, you know what? Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? We'll take care of it from here. Right? October 4th and 13th of October 2016, an individual allegedly shot at 2 different police stations in Indianapolis, Indiana. The subject left a handwritten note at the scene of one of the shootings, in which he identified himself as a Moor. So a guy goes and shoots up a station or whatever like that, and then at the scene leaves a note saying that he's a Moor. He didn't make no demands or nothing like that. He just left a note saying that I'm a Moor. Like there's nothing for that individual to, there's nothing that individual is asking for or anything like that, right? The subject posted pictures on social media of African American men carrying assault rifles behind text calling for social injustice and retribution. The subject was later involved in a shootout with police during his arrest on related charges, according to law enforcement. Right, so you know how the Negro, black, colored people are supremely gullible and naive, and you could pretty much tell them anything and they'll go with it, just because this is where our people's mindset is, right? This is where their mindset is. That I'm not going to be a Moor because the FBI said that a Moor did a shooting of whatever, so I don't want nothing to do with Moors. Right? We can find ample amounts of examples of criminal elements in Cuba that you're not going to hear Cubans talk about, oh, I'm not going to be Cuban because the FBI said that some Cubans shot up some place over there, so we're not going to be Cubans. Like, it's not happening like that. And again, these are things that they're putting out to test the stupidity or the incompetence of so-called black people. Right? This says Moors in it, but trust this is not for Moors or about Moors. This is to see how dumb our people are. Because again, since, right, they're talking about 2016, 2015, this and that happened or whatever, right? But this is what they knew in 1931. Department of Justice, Bureau of Investigations, September 14th, 1931. Dear sir, reference is made to telephonic instructions from Mr. Bowman at the Bureau on September 11th, 1931 for the Philadelphia Moorish Shrine Temple of America, and one scratched out bay of Reading, Pennsylvania. And information which was supposedly been furnished by this office to the Bureau on September 11th and 12th, 1931 by telephone. It was ascertained that whoever bay of Reading, Pennsylvania, is a colored boarding house operator. When interviewed on the pretext concerning Blackout Bay and the Moorish Shrine Temple of America, advised that Bay had been residing at her boarding house for the past year and that he conducts a Negro barbershop, stated that no meetings of any kind are held at her residence and that she knows nothing concerning an organization by the name of Moorish Shrine Temple of America. She advised that Bay spends considerable time preparing literature on various sorts of publications and sends out numerous letters through the mail. She also could furnish no information concerning the nature of the literature referred to. Inquiries throughout various likely sources of information in the cities of Philadelphia and Reading, Pennsylvania, developed very little information concerning Bay or the organization in question. The Blackout of Lulu Temple, a well-known and reputable Negro fraternal organization in Philadelphia, advised that he knows nothing concerning a Negro organization called the Moorish Shrine Temple, and that if such an organization existed, it must be clandestine in nature, otherwise he would have been informed concerning it. So the Moorish Shrine Temple was under investigation by the FBI by Department of Justice in 1931. Now they classify it in the early writings as the Moorish Shrine Temple because they thought Moors were Shriners. They didn't have the infiltration yet. They didn't have the people on the inside yet to let them know what this was about. And again, if you go to the FBI papers on the Moorish Science Temple of America, they had serious infiltration notes after the infiltration. Right? And again, remember that when Noble Drew Ali passed away and the concept came about, well, we have to infiltrate these organizations so it doesn't take foot or take a hold. The whole point of them infiltrating was, one, to get information in there, right? To extract certain information so that they know what this is about. Because, you know, like they're saying, in 30, this has been around since 1913. In 31, this is just when they're starting to look into this. And they're calling it Moorish Shrine stuff and all that, when that has nothing even to do with what this is about. Right? Remember that them going into the Moorish Science Temple and infiltrating and searching for information is because of the threat of Noble Drew Ali, not necessarily because of what was happening at the time when they started infiltrating. When they started to really find out what this was about is when they had their informants in there bringing information out. Prior to that, they were just guessing what this is. We heard about something, you know what I mean? We see them wear fezzes or whatever. It might have something to do with Shriners. We don't know, but this is what it is. They went around to Miss whoever that had whatever, asked her. She's like, I don't know. The guy, the person who this whoever Bay was renting from at the boarding house or whatever like that, she seen him doing stuff, but she didn't have no info. They spoke to Lulu Temple, a known and reputable Negro fraternal organization. They didn't know nothing about what Moorish whatever was. But they knew that there was something going on. They knew that they'll see people with fezzes on and turbans on. They knew that there was something, but to really get the information, they had to go inside. Right?
So you're saying at the time the Prophet was around, it was when he first started it, up until, would you say, 1929?
Mm-hmm.
There was no FBI investigation really necessary for that at the time, what you're saying?
Because it was running how it was supposed to run.
Okay.
The Moorish Science Temple is not a threat to people's social ills.
You're saying after the Prophet left the scene,
After the Prophet left, now you have
30
all
Moors.
these branch, right? Because of the Moors who took him out the way. Now you have a reason to see who's real.
yeah,
Who's the real Moors, who's the fake Moors? Who's the Moors that are down with the Prophet? Who's the Moors that are down with these people after the Prophet, pretending that they're the Prophet? And again, when you go through the list, Elijah Muhammad's in there because he was one. Right? Kirkman Bey's in there, he was one. Garvey was in there because he got visited by Noble Drew Ali, so obviously he's going to be under, you know what I mean, investigation. Because if the man came to check you in prison, clearly you and him know stuff that you guys aren't letting everybody else know. For him to go visit him in prison, right? So when we look at the this Black Identity Extremist FBI bulletin, and they're just throwing Moors in there, and yeah, you know, the Moor, and then this guy wrote a letter said that he's a Moor, and then some other guy, we found papers on him that said that he's a Moor and all that. All that stuff has nothing to do with the infiltration of Moorish Science Temple. What they're infiltrating is the Moorish sovereign citizen people, which has nothing to do with active Moors, which has nothing to do with studious Moors, which has nothing to do with allodial card carrying Moorish Americans. They are infiltrating, they are investigating the quote unquote renegade sovereign citizen Moors, which there are those Moors. There is that element of Moors who their position is, you know, off the grid, and, you know, this system has to fall and whatever like that. That's not a reality for Moors who study, right? Because Moors who study have Noble Drew Ali as a background that told the Moors, as soon as this European falls, all the stuff is yours, because you're in your own land. What do you need to be fighting these people for what? How about you just wait them out like they waited us out? Same thing that they did was. While we're doing the infighting, they're just waiting. No. Or these guys eventually gonna kill these people out, each other off. Once they kill each other off, then we step in. Right? Well, you know, you reap what you sow. Same thing that they sat back and watched. Same thing that we're sitting back as Moors and watching now. Europeans infighting. Europeans saying that they want the republic back, and other Europeans saying that forget that, ain't no republic, this is democracy, and you guys are going to be under fascism. Forget what you think you want. And then, you know, all these Europeans realizing that, oh, so in order for me to be not in the jurisdiction, it's probably best for me to renounce the U.S. citizenship and go back to my nationality. And all the ones who have finance, that's what they're doing. They're saying, forget U.S. whatever, I'm Scottish, German, you know what I mean, Dutch, whatever like that. Move their account to other places and all that, and they carry on carrying on. While the people who are content being governed by people who they didn't give consent to govern them, those people are just on their own. We'll let them get whatever it is that they get, right? Yes, sis.
I was watching a video, and this European lady is like encouraging everyone, I guess all the other Europeans, to get naturalized. No, it's not good. Naturalized?
Yeah.
What is that? What
So-
does it mean, like when she's...
So, what Europeans know, okay, so the reason why they would say, denounce their U.S. citizenship is because the Europeans know that there's no legitimate citizenship through a corporation,
Yeah, that's what she's saying.
right? Europeans know that United States is a corporation. They don't think that it's a government or whatever like that. They know that it's a corporation.
So if they're
So
not...
they deal with it accordingly, right? The problem with Europeans naturalizing is that they can't naturalize themselves. A European can't naturalize a European in America because they're foreigners. And the process of naturalization is done to a foreigner, not by a foreigner. the process of naturalization has to be done by whoever's land it is. So,
You're saying the government would have to be de jure first before that all even takes place.
right. So,
Which is not-
Dennis Rodman wants to be North Korean or whatever, right? He's not going to some European office in North Korea to let them make him Korean. He's gonna go to the Koreans. It only makes sense, right? Why would you go to somebody who's not of that land to become tied to that land, right? So when you hear Europeans talk about, Europeans have to get naturalized, where they have to be going with it is not only be naturalized, but like you're saying, be naturalized by the de jure people of the land, which would be the Aboriginal indigenous people, which would not be the people who we see, around here that say that they're native and they're, Six Nations or whatever.
That's tied to de facto, right?
Right? Because that's de facto. You know what I mean? And they themselves say they came over here on the Bering Strait. So clearly you're not indigenous here if you came over here from somewhere. Right? There's no way that you're indigenous, so there's no way that those people would be the indigenous people that have the power. Now, again, when we go back to the bulletin, we know that there's no such thing as a black identity. So the people who are classified here as Negro, black, or whatever, that can't be who they are. So who are those people, right? Which is where we go with, our people are the Aboriginal indigenous people that lost their mind and now they're black. But they're really supposed to be Aboriginal indigenous. And then the so-called Indians, they get put back in their place where they're from, which is not here. And then, anybody else who's foreigner, they get put to where they're at, which is not here. And then whoever's left, that's who the indigenous people are. Because again, we're going to go with the fact that not all of us came over here on a slave ship. And if some of us did come over here on a slave ship, it was our slave ship. And it wasn't no Asiatics on it, it was Europeans on it. If we're going to play the slavery game and slave ships and stuff like that, then Moors were the ones who had the slave ships. It wasn't some Europeans. It's possible that 1600s, 1500s, 1400s, or whatever like that, Europeans have ships sailing around the place. That's not reality. They thought Earth was flat. Last thing they're doing is getting in the water to go sail to that line over there and fall off the planet into the universe. Talk about they slave somebody.
So are you suggesting that the black identity extremists are the European sovereign citizens?
That level too. Even that's a level to go with. If people have, if the attention is where it's supposed to be, right? Like what Moors say, law, etymology, the 7 liberal arts or whatever, then we would look at it from that perspective. Well, if black means pale, then the black identity extremists are the pale identity extremists. And no matter what Negro black color do, nobody's more extreme than a Nazi, than KKK or whatever like that. Like those guys are extreme, right?
Because it does differential Moorish sovereign citizens,
Right.
black identity groups, and it identifies MSTA separately,
Right.
right? So basically they're saying that sovereign Moorish sovereign citizens, their ideology comes from the Moorish Science Temple of America, and it says, and then it goes on to say that how, let me see if I can find it. It's like they're basically saying that, okay, it says here that Moorish sovereign citizens are a loose network of mostly African American.
You're on the bulletin?
Yeah.
What page you on?
Page number. This is page number. Well, I kind of wrote. I'm not really on it. I kind of just
Oh, you just have, okay,
screenshot
yeah.
section.
Alright.
I think it's
Oh,
page
good.
6 though.
Alright.
And it says here, Moorish sovereign citizens are a loose network of mostly African American who believe they are sovereign entities, who do not recognize the authority of the U.S. government. Moorish sovereign citizen ideologies derived from the Moorish Science Temple of America, a non-violent religious and cultural movement founded in 1913 by Noble Drew Ali, who taught his followers they are not Negroes, but Moors, people of North America, Berbers and Arab descent. Some Moorish adherents adopt sovereign citizen strategies to assert diplomatic immunity by claiming membership of a fictitious Native American tribe.
Alright. So, they're talking about Moors who classify themselves with a tribe, right? Keep in mind that these people know that the oldest indigenous tribe is the Washita, right? Europeans know this. So, if you're not claiming that, clearly you're not part of the original tribes. If you're claiming just a tribe of whatever, then you're probably down with the fraud that's taking place. Because it shouldn't even be set up so that the individual is claiming that they're the tribe. Because this is really about nationality. So to say that they're going to adopt a tribal name and then use that sovereignty in order to do their sovereign citizen, whatever, it's BS. If Moorish Science Temple of America is a non-violent organization, how is it violent people are coming out of that and then they have SBI bulletin on them?
It's funny how they even stated that we're not
You
Negroes.
know what I mean? Like, they're telling them,
They
give you the full, yeah, they give you the fullness and then they put the lie in there
Moorish Americans and they're African American.
because they know where the people are at and they're putting this out to get the people. The ones who don't study, the ones who think whatever Moors say, it is BS or whatever, there's no such thing as nationality, Moor shit doesn't work, Moors tried this. We have all these videos of Moors trying to show their nationality card, they got arrested or whatever. That doesn't mean anything. Trust me, you have Japanese mafia or whatever like that. Kidnap people, cut their hand off, cut their head off, send their head to people and all that stuff. Japanese not saying, oh, those guys, oh, the Japanese people did that. Oh, I'm not going to be Japanese. I'm going to be something else other than Japanese because there's some dirty Japanese that's doing stuff with the Japanese name. So we're not going to be Japanese. Asinine to think like that. Again, they know that our people are skating on thin ice right now, right? And anything could make them, you know what I mean, go off the edge. All right? Again, they brought up Gavin Long. Gavin Long ambushed 6 law enforcement officers in Louisiana, eventually being killed by police. Long had expressed black separatist rhetoric both on social media, in his manifesto, including rants against crackers and reference to the African American male killed by police in Baton Rouge. In his manifesto, Long expressed his frustration with the police and criminal justice system in the United States and saw his actions as a necessary evil in order to create substantial change. A law enforcement search of Long's laptop contained biographical information and residential addresses of 2 officers involved in the Alton Sterling shooting and Google search directions to one of the officers' homes. This is big quotes. Remember, this is what the FBI is saying, right? So, if the Negroes and the blacks and the conscious people or whatever are gonna say, well, we're not gonna be Moors because see what the FBI said about Moors? Okay, let's use this then in this example, right? Let's use this as credible, right? So FBI says, Long had also declared himself to be a Moor and changed his slave name to the Moorish name Cosmo Asar Septepenra. What kind of name is that? Cosmo Asar Septepenra. What kind of name is that? Based on the language. Huh? Egyptian. Okay. He's Kemetic or whatever. Alright. So if Long declared himself to be a Moor, but he had an Egyptian name, then what does that mean about Egyptians? So if Egyptians are Moors, then how come all the so-called Kemetic people or whatever like that, if the FBI knows that Egyptians are Moors, based on Gavin Long declaring himself to be a Moor and changing from Gavin Long to his name, Cosmo Asar Septepenra, no L, no B, or nothing like that, then we have to come to the conclusion that Kemetic people are Moors too, if we're going to go with what the FBI said. And remember, Negro black colored are using this as a reason why they shouldn't be Moors. The FBI said that look what Moors did. Moors shoot police officers and stuff like that, so I'm not going to be a Moor. All right, well, I guess you can't be Kemetic either then. Throw Kemetic out the way because it was a Kemetic Moor who shot up those police or whatever according to this. But they're not going to say they're not Kemetic. They're just going to say they're not Moors. Right? They're not going to say they're not black, but they're just going to say Moor means black, but they're not Moors, but they're black. Right? Marcus Garvey was a Maroon, which means they're Moors, but they're not Moors, they're Garveyites. But Marcus Garvey was a Maroon, which is a Moor. Right? On September 13th, 2016, an individual reportedly intentionally drove his vehicle toward 3 white officers with the police department in Phoenix, Arizona outside a gas station, striking 2 of them before he was arrested. The subject's social media accounts indicated that he was tied to a BIE group and a Moorish group, and that he was angry over the police shootings since at least the killing of Brown in 2014. Consistent with BIE statements on social media, the subject stated, the Caucasian needs to be slaughtered like the pigs that they are, right along with the niggers who serve and protect them, according to law enforcement reporting. So if the Caucasian needs to be slaughtered like the pigs that they are, right along with the niggers who serve and protect them, what about the niggers who back this document and say that this is why they're not going to be Moors? Doesn't that mean that they're siding with the FBI? If Negro black conscious people are saying, we have a document from the FBI that says Moors are whatever, don't be Moors because of this document, doesn't that mean that they're sellouts and they're traitors? And they're working with the FBI if they're pushing this as the real document? Because we, as Moors, we know this is some BS. These guys, we got FBI papers from Moorish Science Temple of America in the 1930s to know that they already know what we're about. Forget what they assume that we're about. They already know what we're about, and they're pacifying the Negroes.
Yeah, but they even tell us in what I just read that they specifically say Moors like follow Noble Drew Ali. Moors that follow Noble Drew Ali's teachings.
Yeah.
Those are the non-violent, cultural.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. The same Moors that they wrote about in the proclamation.
So Moors now, that should tell you that now stand on your square for sure because they know who you are.
Because they know who's who and what's what. Right? Now and again, then they start drifting from oh, and then also too, with regard to Gavin Long, Cosmo Asar Septepenra. Keep in mind that we put up the video where he came out and said, "Don't affiliate me with anything." So if he's so if he's saying, "Hey, you know what? You guys shouldn't affiliate me with anything," right? You guys shouldn't affiliate me with anything. If they're gonna affiliate him with stuff after he said, "Don't affiliate me with stuff," clearly there's propaganda going on. And they're affiliating him with Moors on top of that. And then he has a Kemetic name, but they're not affiliating him with Egypt. They're going to affiliate him with Moors. Clearly they should be affiliating him with ancient Egypt if his name is Cosmo Asar Septepenra. But again, it goes back to George G.M. James' Stolen Legacy. That no so-called Negro, black, colored, conscious people ever bring up that book. Because that book tells you that the so-called ancient Egyptian mysteries, was in custodialship to the Moors when Kemet fell. When Egypt fell, the Moors were the custodians of everything that came out of Egypt. Stolen Legacy, George G.M. James. Right? So now on the 21st of November 2014, they're not even saying an individual now. Now they're saying a BIE. A BIE was arrested. No name or whatever, just a BIE was arrested. But, you know, a BIE was arrested. But this BIE that had discussed ambushing the police had ties to the sovereign citizen movement, filed paperwork declaring himself an Aboriginal, indigenous, free sovereign Moor, and possessed a Moorish identification card. But he's a BIE. They found a card on him, but they don't have a name for this guy. And then all the other people, they have found papers and they're going to write stuff that they're a Moor or whatever, but they're calling them a European name the whole time. Clearly, if they found ID on this individual when they killed them or whatever, probably have a Moorish name on it. More than likely, if they have Moorish ID, they're going to have a Moorish name on it. But they're going to classify him as a BIE. Not put the name on the identification card that they admit in the thing that he possessed. Because again, they're playing pacify the people, right? They're playing, we know that you're dumb nigger, so we can put anything out. And the reaction is always going to be the same, passivity. Emotionalism. Just go watch all the videos that the black guys put out on BIE and listen to them talk in their victimize, somebody owes them something mentality, weak mentality, right? Slave mentality, mind-controlled mentality, that they are not dealing with reality. They're dealing with illusions. Because as soon as you read this, there has to be something in your mind that lets you realize that something's up. And how come the so-called people in the conscious community that are pushing this out haven't realized that something's up? Right? Like just like what Brother Osiris was bringing up, right? In addition, although non-Moorish SCEs have committed lethal violence against law enforcement in the past, this violence has typically occurred in response to encounters with law enforcement, for example, during traffic stops or issuing of warrants, rather than through premeditated, targeted aggression. In addition, not all self-identified Moors are sovereign citizens.
That just tells you right there.
So how come the black guys keep classifying all the Moors as sovereign citizens, but the FBI is saying, well, no, you can't look at them as that. Why can't you look at them as that? Because you have about 15 goddamn states that made proclamation acknowledging the Moors. You have South Carolina records acknowledging that the Moors, the Egyptians, the Israelites are not Negroes. You have freaking Dred Scott case saying that African Americans can't be citizens. You have Supreme Court ruling, 1800s, civil rights unconstitutional. You have all these things. You have Abraham Lincoln defending the Moor. You have sundry free Moors. You have Delaware Moors. You have, Chippewa, Cherokee Moors. You have Washita Moors. That history goes back to United States being sued over the Louisiana Purchase. Moors did that. Specific Moors. So when they say, and again, like we're not upholding FBI as no authority in anything. But we know that they have the facts. On top of the falsehood, because that's COINTELPRO. Why would they only have the facts and present the facts? But they do have it. And the fact is, not all self-identified Moors are sovereign citizens.
That's why they even identify the Moorish sovereign citizens.
Right.
Specifically.
Right.
So that means they're saying that's a different set of Moors right there. Which are not the Moors who are
The
not
Moors
sovereign
who are with Noble Drew Ali.
Exactly.
The Moors who are with the Moorish Divine National Movement. The Moors who are with enforcing the Constitution, because it's only right that the people do that. It's not to take an anti-government position or whatever. The whole point of enforcing the Constitution is to prove that you're not anti-government, that you're down with government. That's the only reason you would enforce a Constitution, because you're with government. Only if you're against government would you be not about enforcing the Constitution. Right? Not all sovereign citizen Moors engage in violence against law enforcement or illegal activity.
The Moorish sovereign citizens.
Right, again. Right?
Those would you be called like the UCC Moors and...
Right. Yeah, so let's touch on that. So, not all self-identified Moors are sovereign citizens, right? So, the sovereign citizens, remember they didn't say Moorish sovereign citizens. Not all Moors are Moorish sovereign citizens. They say not all Moors are sovereign citizens, right? So not all Moors are sovereign citizens. The sovereign citizens is that European ideal that they keep trying to say. Moors took that, like the sovereign Moors took that stuff from the European sovereign citizens. That's who they're saying in the first aspect of self-identified Moors are not sovereign citizens, right? And then they said not all sovereign citizen Moors, which is a separate jurisdiction than the sovereign citizens. The sovereign citizen Moors are the Moors who adopt the UCCs and want to get in commerce and engage in commerce, authenticate birth certificate and have classes about how to do this and charging people for their birthright and all that. That's where the Moors' connection to the sovereign citizen is, which we're not that either, right? Because we know that as long as we claim that we're part of a nation, we have sovereignty as Moors, right? We have full sovereignty as a nation, as a body politic, or we have clip sovereignty as individuals who are just realizing that there's a fraud going on and we're not taking the BS. We understand what's going on and we're not going to be down with the BS that's going on. Like we know what's going on out here. And we're going to take our chances at standing up for our rights opposed to kneeling down and hoping somebody gives us rights, or lie in the street and hope somebody recognizes us, or go march up and down the place and hope that somebody acknowledges whatever. We'll take the position of we'll deal with ourselves according to international law, and anybody else that engage us based on that. Don't engage us based on your assumption of anything or whatever. Brother Omar.
No, I was just saying that I didn't hear the whole piece here, but it's obvious yet again that this is counterintelligence stuff too,
Big
right?
time. Big time.
Because I mean, even me, I'm coming in here, I'm confused. I was going to start asking about who this Moorish sovereign citizen was, but you obviously broke it down. But it seems to me that the problem still is reflective of the fact that we're not organized, right? I mean, there's no organized body yet, so it's still, they can just still do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. I mean,
Right,
but
so
again,
until we come together-
the organized body is the Negro black colored people, not Moors who know this info.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%. But I think it's incumbent upon the ones that are at that level. I mean, even the Moorish sovereign citizen is hopefully a Moor who needs to drop that shit, right? Because even the Negro black is still a Moor, right? Those people are to be burned, they're to be brought into the light.
Yeah, not if they consent to being burned.
No, you're right, but I'm saying
If
our
they
hope
consent to being burned, then there's the oven.
right.
Like it has nothing to do with people who are on the information and are removing themselves from the line to get burned. If people are going to stay in the line to get burned, knowing that, you know,
But that's the point right there. It's the knowing part, and I think all of us can speak to a time when we didn't know this.
yeah, most definitely. But again, we can also speak to a time when, even though we didn't know, common sense kicked in.
Yes, Islam.
And there's no way that you can hear the truth, see the truth, taste the truth, recognize that what the truth is, and still go with the fiction. Just because FBI said, you know, Moors shoot people, so we don't want to be Moors. We're just going to stay black, right? When knowing that black is a fiction, knowing that that's dealing with the lie. You know what I'm saying? So as soon as we start justifying the fraudulent positions, that's when the enemy realizes that, okay, well, they got those ones at least. The ones who are in the know mentally, and they have a track record, and they have a timeline that they're using to qualify their position, to qualify their existence right now, right? Those are the ones that are going to escape this thing that's going on. Because again, the Black Identity Extremists bulletin is telling these people that you're really Moors. Whether you're Egyptian, you're Moors. Whether you have European name, you're Moors. Because, you know, this guy had a European name and he left a note somewhere saying, I'm a Moor. But yeah, European name. And you didn't say, I am, and then whatever name with L or B. You just said, I'm a Moor. And FBI is going to take that as that guy really, he didn't show papers, card or nothing. They just went with that he's a Moor. He just said so. He just wrote on a paper, I'm a Moor, left it there. And then the FBI came and saw, oh, the guy who shot this left this here. It says he's a Moor. Oh, he's a Moor. We're going to put this in the bulletin. We're going to put this everywhere that this guy said he's a Moor. But then Moors give a nationality card and they're going to talk about, we don't know what that is. But the guy who wrote Moor on paper and just left it there for the FBI to come see, they're going to go with that he's a Moor. But the guy with the ID card, they're going to fight us that, oh no, we're not Moors. But the guy who left the paper at the crime scene, that guy's a Moor.
Thursday, I think it was Thursday or yesterday, Oh, I was up at the shop there, and this guy, the neighbor close by there, he wanted me to move a car from in front of a door, which is not even his door. So we get into a little thing, you know, and I tell him where to go. Anyways, after that in the evening, he see me and he come apologize to me. And his daughter was there too when it happened. Because he started it, he say we smashed my car, so that's what triggered me. And then I tell him where to go. Anyways, in the afternoon now, he come and he apologized to me for what happened. His daughter was there again too. So I said, listen, let me let you know who I am. And I get my stuff, I show him, I explain to him, I tell him because he's Italian too, and I tell him.
Yeah.
And his daughter is about 6 years old, or 7, the most. When I'm finished, and he understood everything, and the little girl was there. You know what the little girl said? Sir, how could I get one of that car? after telling her that I'm not Canadian, I'm not Jamaican, I'm none of these things. She said, how can I get one of those? Yeah.
Tries to be a mark too.
Right, and again, that's going back again to all these lessons that you don't worry about what scholars and adepts and sachems and priests and whatever saying. You listen to the mouth of babes.
Oh yeah.
They'll tell you more truth than half these people out here that claim that they got knowledge.
Exactly.
Right? They'll tell you some truth more than the people who claim that they got all the degrees or whatever. And what usually happens, as soon as they drop knowledge, they suppress them, shut them up quick fast. Don't talk like that, don't whatever like that. And then they bury their divine tie to the universe, which is because they're closest to the womb, just like elder people are closest to the womb. Right? So that's why those two poles are most revered. The young and the elderly. Because both those poles are closest to the womb. One's on the way out, one's on the way in. Everybody in the middle, they're so brainwashed and bombarded with the illusions that, you know what I mean, again, it's going to take the Klansman on his deathbed to come out, yeah, the black woman's God and stuff like that, you know. I was so wrong for doing all that stuff to black women all these years and all that stuff. God, please forgive me because I recognize the black woman's God and all that stuff. The deathbed, you didn't, 10 years ago, you didn't think about that when you were lynching people and stuff like that, burning crosses, you didn't think about that. On the deathbed, think about that. It is what it is. No, oh, you got something more?
Yeah, no, also I sort of remember back in my past when I was questioning my parents on stuff, on why this was, well, why am I black when I look at my skin and it's brown?
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. And there, you know what I mean? And this is sort of examples of that. And then got to a point where it was basically, oh, you'll understand when you get older. And now looking back on it, what I realized was...
I guess you understand.
Yeah, the getting older part was the continuum of the indoctrination and the enslavement. Where you were, so what happened was all of those, like you say, all of those connections to the other side are sort of dulled and then converted.
Right.
Because of your, you know, it's like a guy who's been in prison 50 years. At the end of it, he doesn't know life on the outside.
Right, right.
Right?
Yep.
So it's some of that stuff that I think we have to, as parents, also hopefully nurture in our children.
Yeah.
Right? The positivity that they are right.
Yeah.
Right? But the system right now doesn't allow that rightness to sort of exist.
Right. Which is again back to, you know, Drew Ali again, making that call to Moors, think and save yourself. Because what you really gonna rely on? You know what I mean? What are you really gonna hope on? You know?
Well, to add to what Oma was talking about with the children, I received a letter this week, again, every week it happens, where they were asking, I showed it to you, right, Osiris?
I think so.
I showed it to you. But anyway, don't worry. They have a litany of questions now. Are you black? Are you white? Are you Asian? Are you indigenous? And it's a letter now that they're sending home at my child's school. I don't know if any other school gets it. Whereas they're asking you, you know, what are you from? And it's asking people to explain who they are. They never used to, I don't know, again, I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if they set it out with your child or whoever, like who have children. But at the school now, ever since I've been giving them paperwork, ever since they know who I am, all that stuff, they're asking questions now. So I called the principal and I said, what's this all about? She said, well, I mean, you kind of started something now. I said, what do you mean by that? She's like, well, I don't want to say anything, but the letter that you sent to the trustees and to my bosses, now they're asking us to ask across the board who everybody is.
Congratulations.
Right? Appreciate that. So obviously I answered and I put, you know, Aboriginal, Indigenous, and then for other I put more. And she said, okay, but is it possible to just check the black as well?
Wow.
On top of the other.
Right?
That's rude.
No, that's fine. Again, it's part of the indoctrination. I said to her, you know I can't do that, right? She's like, yeah, I know, it's just like, no, I have to explain now. Right? Because if that box was checked, okay, they can say, okay, all right, they're black, whatever. But just saying indigenous and more and looking at the child is like, oh crap. She's like, I have to explain it to the people who I'm giving it to now. The principal might say, well, I mean, I can make your job easier, let me do it for you.
Yeah. Set up the meeting, I'll show up.
See what I'm saying? So, again, back to what Omar was speaking on with the children and the parents, you gotta let everybody know. You gotta. Like, some people, I don't want nobody to know because, screw that shit, man. That time is over. They already know who you are. Just let them know. Let them know and just, whatever, like something's gonna happen whereas they're gonna challenge you or they're gonna agree with you. But something's gonna happen. But you gotta let them know, man. You gotta let them know. That's that.
Any questions before we continue on? You probably we'll deal with some questions now. New people, any questions, comments? Now again, just to going back again to the whole concept of the individuals referencing BIE to try to get our people not to be Moors. So one of the Moors, when we dealt with the Dane Calloway, he put up 10 grand to debate Dane Calloway. Right? But then when just one of the Moors up there, just after the slander BS, some Moors reached out to those people on some, okay, well, you guys talk BS or whatever, then let's go. But they, after they found out they got to put up 5 grand too, you know what I mean? Now they don't want to do it. They're backpedaling. They don't want to be part of nothing like that. They only debate with people who have 100K more or followers. Right? That's who they debate. 100K followers or more. So you already know that they're in that realm. They're in that realm of fame and nobility without dues. Fame and mobility without putting in work. Because again, we ask the question, all these people who have some smart, dumb shit to say about Moors right now, where were they in 1982? when Moore's Order of the Round Table was founded, putting out this same information that we're putting out today? Where were they in 1990 when Moore's Order of the Round Table was putting out this same information that we're putting out today? Where were they in 1995? So how come these people had nothing to say? How come only recently, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost for the past maybe month, every week, some new individuals coming up that they got a problem with Moors and they got to say something. Like, this is a thing that's happening right now. Like clockwork, they're coming up, right? What's the thing called? Whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole game. The head just keeps falling up and you have to beat the head with the thing. Like, that's how they're popping up right now. Everywhere. No matter what. No matter what school of thought. I never seen so many Hebrew videos talking about something about Moors. Black guys talking about Moors. Kemetic guys coming, everybody got something to say. Everybody got something to say right now. Everybody has a point to make. And then, what it really comes down to it, all these people are Moors, and they're really hating on their self. And we know that self-hate is the worst hate. We learned that coming up in the black stuff, that self-hate is the first. So you gotta go back and embrace African culture because they taught you that Africans are savages and stuff like that, or whatever like that. Okay, well, what did they teach you about the Moors that they're going with? Talking Moors enslaved people, Moors kidnapped people, Moors did this and that, Moors conquered this and that, but it's not stopping what it is that's going on. People waking up to this reality that they are not adjectives and continents. People are waking up to the reality that they're not these things. This is not just like you know, a new interesting school of thought, and then we're gonna get a more school of thought, and then after we go there, then we're gonna go over here to this is endgame when you get to this part. Sure. Once you get to you're not Negro, black, colored, you're more. It's over, right?
Even Floyd Mayweather, did you hear that recording?
Nah.
It was brother Rue over across in Detroit.
Yeah.
I know, in Chicago.
I didn't hear the recording though.
He posted talking about how he's talking about Europeans, when you call Europeans European, but we don't call them European Americans. You know? Right. So he's like, I don't want to be called no African American. Don't be calling me that. You call me, if you want to call me black, I'm American. You call me that, but don't call me African American.
Right, and again, like, you know, if we're using him as an example, we'll go to all the Moors, all the people who were so-called Negro, black, colored, and then came into this information and got their self out of illiteracy by studying and having dictionaries. Don't be surprised if, you know, a year or something like that, you hear this guy start talking about he's doing classes, teach people stuff and all that. Right? Because we know Moors who were illiterate, didn't know how to read and write and all that stuff. And Moorish science taught them how to read and write. Right? Like there are Moors who like didn't finish high school or whatever. And Moorish science got them to a place where people who know that they're dumb niggers are like, what the hell happened to you or whatever? Like, you never used to talk like that. How you know all that stuff? And when you learn to read and all that? For the past year I learned how to read or whatever. Just because? Just picking up a book, sounding the letters out, abracadabra, sounded out and stuff like that, and then you learn. No teacher doing that, somebody doing that on their own. And then people saying, oh, the more science can't do nothing for them. Half these people that's so-called conscious or whatever probably didn't finish no high school or whatever. They're dumb nigger. They don't know who they are. And we know that more science will save people. Because we've seen people's mind change. We've seen people have fear in them for a highwayman. Have fear in them because somebody who they don't know sent them a letter with a red thing on it, final notice or whatever like that. They're scared. Right? We know people who receive those things, and now that they have their right, or now that they have their mind back, there's no way that these people are going to convince them of whatever BS they're trying to convince them of. Whether it's they have some type of authority over them, whatever it is. It's not going to be the easy battle anymore. It's not going to be just, let's put this yellow thing on this guy's car and he's going to give us 500. Because we are put the yellow thing on your car, people, that you're just going to pay. Right? More check the back. Oh, sorry, trial. We'll go to trial, see where this goes. And they see where it goes. And again, you know what I mean? Moors who are really studying and they really care about their birthright and their family and all that stuff, if they go to court and they get railroaded and they lose, get thrown in jail or whatever like that, when they get out, they're still Moors. They're not Moors because they went to court and it didn't go in their favor, so, well, the Moor stuff didn't work, so now I'm not going to be a Moor because court, they found me guilty in court. Right? Anybody who thinks like that, they don't deserve their nationality and birthright. Right? It's not even anything for them to even, you don't even have it on your mind. Just you know what I mean, like Joali said, turn in your cardin button and go back to being a nigger, and don't talk about Moors, don't say Moor stuff doesn't work and all that stuff, because just like FBI said, you know, don't look at all Moors as sovereign citizens or whatever. Don't look at all sovereign citizen Moors as with noble Joali or whatever. Right? It doesn't really go like that. Chauncey asked, Islam, was the Prophet's literature changed from its original context? There's some things that were changed. Holy Quran, Moorish Science Temple, the chapters. You would find in the chapters of the Holy Quran, you would find lots of misspellings. So if you get 2 Qurans and you read both of them, you'll find, you know, one would say here, the other one would say air. Right? One would say temple, the other one will say whatever else. Like there's a lot of stuff like that. Divine Constitution, we know that parcel was changed to partial. So anywhere if you read any Moorish literature and it says part and partial, we know that that was changed because it's supposed to be part and parcel. Right? It's not going to be part and partial.
There's
Actually,
mysteries. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the mysteries was Brotherhood.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Misspellings again.
You also have to understand the context of how it's used as well. Partial and parcel. Have to understand how to use it and where to use it, and why it's being used, and how it could trick you up if you don't understand. In terms of, sir. Yeah, in terms of first person, second person, or whatnot. So it's not a matter that it's wrong or right. It's a matter of how it's used.
Yeah, the context.
The context
Right.
of how it's used. That's why we always say study and understand what it means. Because parcel denotes more or less a thing, or like who you are or whatever. Partial denotes more or less it's partially moving this over or whatever. So if you don't understand how it's being used, you will get tricked up. And this is with a lot of the books and stuff that they've done over the years, they've really tried to make you use something when you're, you know.
Well, I have, actually, I was just on this week, like, last night with this post on Facebook. They posted some original documents from Noble Juali, a picture of, I guess, all the members, and then they have it as being an original copy of, it's saying partial,
Yeah.
right? So I went and I looked up the definition myself, right? And well, I said, well, you know what, I'm going by my common sense because I don't know, I'm going by your strength, and you say you're more, this is original, so, okay. I'm not gonna say it's fake or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna go to the definition in the Black's Law. And so basically the Black Law is saying that parcel is linked to estate, and it's also linked to I can't remember the other word, there's two words, but then with partial it says not complete and not
Not given the
not
whole,
not
not whole.
complete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not universal is
Right.
another word they said.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'd rather go with something that says that I'm part of an estate.
Then not whole.
Not whole,
Yeah.
not.
And was that done to, you know, like you said, to test the minds, you know?
Well, I mean, at this point, that was the infiltration of confusing the info, because if you know, it's like if we say if people say our people are African Americans and they go with that, not knowing that Jesse Jackson made that up, then they're believing an illusion, and they can believe that for however long they want, but Jesse Jackson made that up, so like that's. Like he's from the 60s or whatever. That's how far back you go back. You don't go past the 60s. But then you're trying to convince the world that you're the ancient black people that did something crazy. Like, where are you at in your mind? That a guy from the 60s created your identity, but you're saying you're ancient people, right? You know. So a lot of the, you know, it's even 101 questionnaire. Right? MSTA founded in 1913. That's a fiction. That's not real. Because you go to Moorish Leaders Historical Messages tell you MSTA in 1928. So what do you mean MSTA in 1913? How did 1913 get connected to MSTA? When there's documented proof that 1913 was Canaanite temple, right? No different than these people are gonna go around talking about, yeah, Elijah Muhammad is the whatever, but you check the FBI paper says Elijah Poole. So, like, what do you mean? What do you mean Elijah Muhammad? What do you mean? Who's that? That's not who they had under surveillance, the FBI. They had Elijah Poole under surveillance. But that was 1930 something. You know what I mean? And again, you know, if because of the infiltration and the infiltrators knowing what the truth is, they can put out whatever they want. Because we already know that Elijah Poole is Elijah Poole Bay. But then if they put Elijah Poole Bay in the FBI papers in the 1930s, then it's given away that they know about that these guys are Moors. So they have to make it look like these guys are black guys and they just created their thing called Temple of Islam, Nation of Islam in 1930. When their stuff goes back to Moorish Science Temple. Hebrew Israelite people, their stuff goes back to Moorish Jews of Harlem. But you never hear Hebrew Israelites talk about Moorish Jews of Harlem. How come? Why do you guys talk about them? They're Hebrews. They're Israelites. But all these people today, ISPUK or whoever else that call themselves Hebrew Israelites, never bring up the Moorish Zionist Jews of Harlem. Why? they're Hebrew Israelites. How come they never bring them up as they're connected to that? Because then that lets them know that, you know, Hebrews are Moors. Whether they're Zionist Jews or, you know what I mean, whatever branch of Israelite they want to call themselves, their foundation goes back to those brothers and sisters in the 1930s that went to Haile Selassie's coronation and all that. Moors, not Hebrew Israelites. And if they are quote-unquote Jews, they're Moorish Jews. Right? Because everybody is familiar. Once you check the timeline, if you want to go with assumption, then who knows where these people come from. If you go with timeline, Garvey goes back to Maroons of Jamaica. They got a treaty with the British and stuff like that. Clearly they're not African slaves if they're doing a treaty. Clearly they have to have some type of sovereignty for the British sovereignty people to say, okay, we're going to do a treaty with you guys. And then those people don't look like Indians or whatever, you know what I mean? They look like Yadis. And they do a treaty with them? I thought they're savages or whatever. What are you doing a treaty with savages? Clearly something must be going on that's not being relayed in the historical information. But if you use your common sense, you figure this stuff out tomorrow. Right? There's no way Europeans could bring so-called black people anywhere when Europeans were scared to go in the water. Forget sail the boat somewhere. Like they wouldn't even shower. How is somebody who doesn't shower going on a boat somewhere? When shower entails going in the water. And these people not go, like, why would they go in the water? If they don't like showering, why are they going to go in the water? For what? What benefit is them putting a boat in the water? To go where? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you earlier, but I was going to wait. So, Moorish identity, it's an ethnic heritage, not a religious persuasion?
We would say it's a birthright, not a religious persuasion.
The reason why I'm asking you this is because I know this from I've heard about it, because I've researched Moorish identity for a little while, but I noticed it's always associated with Islam.
With Islam, yeah.
But just a while ago you mentioned Hebrews of Highland, so I was just about to ask about that.
Right.
Because some people might be interested,
But they think that it's Islamic. Yeah. Well, but then again, you know, like their I want to say hatred, dislike for Islam is based on corrupted teachings of what Islam is. It's not well what Islam is for real. If they knew what Islam is for real, peace, then they would be done with it.
question.
Right?
Is the head office is there a neutral department, or the head office in the States it's revolved around Islam?
For as far as Islamic or Moorish.
Okay, my point is, if somebody wanted to accept their identity,
Yeah.
which leads me to another question: are all black people Moors? But that's another question. Okay, if a person wants to become a Moor,
Yeah.
but they have another religious persuasion, that would present the concrete.
Yeah, for them, because of their lack of knowledge of what a Moor is. Like what you said, for somebody, how could somebody that's Christian become a Moor if Moors are Islamic, for example, right?
I didn't check my messages. I'm doing class at
I got an answer for that.
Saint Germain
like in 1 hour.
was a Moor, but he was Christian. Saint Benedict is a Moor, but he was Christian, right? So it's not Moor is who we are
Here's the
by
thing.
bloodline.
Here's the thing. I saw one of your members' cards, but I also saw it on the internet before. It mentioned Islamic.
Right.
If you're a Jew
Yeah.
or you want to be connected to your Moorish identity, if you fall into that, how could you get a card or some type of identification piece if it mentions Islam if you're of another religious persuasion?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Is there a neutral department?
Right.
Well, the answer to that is Islam is a science, it's a study. What's happened is the corruption through propaganda makes you think that it's got a religious basis to it, which is just sort of ideology for the masses. Same with Christianity, it's about a level of intelligence, it's about getting to a certain level. Same as Judaism, it's about getting to a certain level, but they brought it down to the mundane, where you're like on a carpet 6 times a day. You're doing those things, and doing the things for the masses. And at the higher level, it's about the science. It's the science behind it. So ultimately, a person, all of us are Islam. Because Islam is I, self, law, and master.
Question. I think it's 5 times a day. But just curious, why use the term Islam? Why not Judaism? Why not Buddhism?
Well, you see,
Specifically
you're putting the horse before the cart. The answer is you're seeing Islam as something negative because they made it negative.
I'm asking you a question.
I'm explaining to you that Islam is the words I, so it's I, self, S, I, self, law, L, am, master. So the word was made out of what is it called? Acronym. It's an acronym for the study.
Of
So
self.
Of self. But it is a complete study.
So
It's like the 5 fingers. That's what it is. So ultimately, and that's where the principle comes from. That's why there's the 5 and the 2, which also represents the days of the week, which represent the energy behind work for 5 days and rest for 5 days. But those were also connected with the sun and the moon, and then the energies behind that. That's the whole other science behind it. But the 5 is a very, very spiritual number. So Islam comes from the acronym of the study of the self. So then what happens is they took Islam as that study and then put the IC on the end to make it like the partial, which was the bastardization of the science. And so so ultimately what's happened is they've done the propaganda so that you feel like you can't identify with that. But ultimately, all of the people who are at the higher levels are Islam, are Christians, and are Jews. They're all of those things. But for the masses, they have you separated. So anyone who's at the level where they want a card that doesn't have Islam on it is sort of, yeah, you could probably do that, but it's really missing the point behind what it is, because it's about the bloodline, it's about the culture. That's what when you're asking about what the Moors, it's really about the culture of who you are, and that culture was knowing who you were and your connection with the world and the universe, more importantly, right? So to say that you don't want to have a card that says Islam on it would be sort of, you know what I'm saying, or to say that people would want to have something that wouldn't identify with that would sort of be like saying, I want to be a Moor, but I don't want to have pigment in my skin. Like, the two things cannot be separated. But you can identify with being a Moor on the surface without wanting to sort of be part of Islam, but then, as I said, it's like sort of the fake clan.
So are all black people Moors?
All black people would go back to that heritage of the Moors, and then they would continue on further back. But they would then be disconnected or through tribes or through different pockets.
Because and then with regard to the all black people being Moors is because the Blackamoor definition goes back to any dark-skinned person, especially an African Negro.
Would that include like South Asians?
Any dark-skinned person. So the first part, any dark-skinned person, is for generically anybody who has pigmentation. There are more, right? Especially African Negro is dealing with the people in America who think they came from somewhere and they got 50 different names.
but still connecting you with being an animal of some sort. So that's even where you see some of the corruption going on too, because even connecting you to being a Negro is still connecting you to be black or something else. So it's still right then, you can see already they're trying to mess some stuff up. They should just see anyone who's got pigment in their skin. And that goes all across the board, because really what this is that we created something called a Frankenstein, which was the European. Before that, it was just us.
Question, with, what's his name, Elijah Muhammad,
Yeah.
was he the one who started it? Wasn't it Farad, Master Farad Muhammad from the early 1900s?
Yeah, for the Nation of Islam. Yeah, but they didn't start until 1930. Like their record, their foundation date is 1930. But they were in existence prior to that, but not as Nation of Islam. You know what I mean? And again, that's where you know, it's just like what Moorish say. You know, if you talk to the parents, you'll find out what's what if you go down the line. So we might not find any info on Fard Muhammad's family, as far as him coming over here, how did he get over here or whatever. His history is, you know, shrouded in mystery. But what they do know is that he was a member of Moorish Science Temple before he was NY. And if he was a member of Moorish Science Temple, and Moorish Science Temple of America was what it was during that time, if Moorish Science Temple of America was what it was during that time, why found something else? Why create something else knowing what Noble Drew Ali established? And keep in mind, he was part of it. He's in the convention pictures, Fard Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad. They're in the convention pictures of Moorish Science Temple. They're there. And to say, abandon that, to start something fresh, just because a guy died or whatever, something's up. Something's up. Because there's no need not to continue what he had established. It boggles my mind to know that, you know what I mean, they had so much going on as Moorish Science Temple that just because the founder died, people went and did their own thing, opposed to stick to the program. That worked for them, because remember, like, you know what I mean, if they were part of it, then they were down with, they're not Negro black colored, that they're a nation, that they got a flag, they got all that stuff. But now when you take, you know, Nation of Islam and put it next to Moorish Science Temple, and you parallel these things, you realize how they stole everything from Moorish Science Temple, but just didn't say Moorish Science Temple by the time they got to 1930. But they were giving out nationality cards just like Moorish Science Temple. They had fezzes just like Moorish Science Temple. They were calling Fard Muhammad Prophet just like Moorish Science Temple, right? Their building was called Temple before it was called Nation of Islam. Their stuff was called the Temple before it was called Nation of Islam. Right? So they took everything. And then they slowly started, you know, talking about Noble Drew Ali less and less and less and less, until now, because of pressure from Moors, you hear Farrakhan start talking about Noble Drew Ali now, in 2015 or whatever. You know, he put his picture in the Savior's Day lecture and stuff like that, had Noble Drew Ali's picture there, first time in 40 years or whatever, they're showing this man's picture. He's talking about Moors from the Nation of Islam pulpit. Talking about Shriners got the fezzes from the Moors and all that. So if Farrakhan knows that Shriners got fezzes from the Moors, then how come people are trying to connect Moors, stole stuff from Shriners and stuff like that? And then if he knows that much, how come he's telling these people that they're black and all that? If he knows that much.
That's what I love Farrakhan like crazy.
You know?
So I started saying that too. I'm like, he must know some stuff.
Has to know.
So for you to say this now you know I'm 100%
When you
down
get back
with
into the country,
I love
Moorish.
Farrakhan.
when you get back into the country, because
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
fight.
You have to be nationalized actually.
He nationalized and all that. He nationalized with some Moors in Baltimore.
But
So
he's
Farrakhan?
Yeah, okay, he's a U.S. citizen, right? So any U.S. citizen doing business with that particular people at that time, like Gaddafi, whoever,
Oh yeah, he was.
don't come
Yeah.
back here.
Exactly.
For him to get back over here, he got nationalized. We have the letters, everything, for him to get in
So
here.
he's a Moor now.
No, well, it's always
Yeah.
been a
Well,
Moor.
I mean
He's
legally.
always, he, in the background he is. He
Mhm.
just did not nationalize. But in a sense, he got naturalized. Because the people who did it, they naturalized. But for him to get back here, he had to naturalize.
But I think you also have to include the fact that we have to see a lot of the leaders that we have, the so-called leaders in our community, have possibly a lot of other motives.
Of course,
Yep.
of course.
And majority of the motives are finance driven.
Yes.
Right.
Because that's really all the
That
devil
runs
could give them. The devil can't give them nothing else that they don't have already or that they can't get from their ancestors. Finance though, they'll take some checks to sell their people on.
And that, sorry to tie back sort of to the Islam part of it, I think, after I stopped talking, I realized that a big part of the Islam thing is, I think, the purpose why we are here in this body. The body and the spirit are two, right? And so Islam is that science behind why we are here, which has been perverted and degraded, and then, like Cujo says, ends up being something financial, where a man knows the truth, but isn't going to talk the truth, or is going to talk partial parts of the truth, and then we realize that he knows the truth, but he's only giving you certain parts of it, and that's where Cujo said that at the end, it's either counterintelligence, or it's for profit. But then when the shit hits the fan, everyone's a Moor. When it comes down to really protecting yourself, the ones that know
Are immediately they're going to be on some more science.
Yeah. Because
The ones that know.
to add to what you're saying again, I'm always adding to you, Omar, sorry, but in
I
regards
just started off with
that's fine, but in regards to Islam, in regards to speaking and saying Assalamu alaikum, go say it to any doctor. And if they know you're on the science, they're going to say it right back to you. Because within their society, within the society that they have to be a part of, they say it on a daily when they greet each other. Assalamu alaikum. And I've done it. Again, I always have the pleasures of being in places and working in places that, so now I get it, but, and they saw me with the fez on, and I greeted them. They didn't say it out loud, but it's like, under their breath. Knowing that I know what they know, and keep it moving. I mean, don't stop and have any conversation, whatever, but in regards to Islam, and you brought it up, all sects in terms of Judaism, Christianity, you talk about Pope Francis, whoever, they all say Assalamu alaikum. Because that is the more ancient greeting than any other greeting that there is. They all say it. But most of us, again, we look at the separation of who we are as individuals. Oh, they're the Jews. Oh, they're the Buddhas. Oh, no. All the Buddhas and all the Jews are in this room right now.
and that's right. And
All of us.
And
So,
sorry, and in answer to your question, can a Moor be a Christian? Of course.
of course. Can a Moor be a Jew? Of course. Because you are everything, and I say this all the time. Because most of us, we always separate, and that is where the division always comes in. Everything runs through your blood. All sciences run through your blood.
But I never asked the Lord to be a Christian. I just said there's a more type of religious persuasion. That's what I asked.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's many
Yes.
persuasions.
Many persuasion.
They might
Now,
not all be religious even.
Yeah. So when we speak about religion, let's have an understanding of religion. In your perspective, what is religion?
I don't know how to define it simply.
Okay. Do we have the dictionary so we could?
Is this
This
it?
one right there.
Sorry, I thought what you had said though, initially, was that that there were some people that you thought hypothetically could be connected, or wanted to be connected possibly with, connecting back to that, but had problems with Islam or Islamic.
So,
on the top of the card.
when you mention the word define, and this is where brass tacks and the rubber meets the road, is everything has a definition. And that is why, as Moors, that's what we call the Moorish Science Temple of America, all Moors study. This is why we tell everybody, study. Don't take my word for it, don't take Omar, Cujo's, study. So when you said you don't know how to define it, what did you say when I asked you? Let me just so I don't get it.
I could define it, but I don't know what would be considered a valid definition.
Alright. Okay. So, you got one?
Yeah,
Read what religion says.
Okay. Concern over what exists beyond the visible world, differentiated from philosophy in that it operates through faith or intuition rather than reason, and generally including the idea of existence of a single being, a group of beings, an eternal principle, or a transcendent spiritual entity that has created the world, that governs it, that controls its destinies, or that intervenes occasionally in the natural course of its history, as well as the idea that ritual, prayer, spiritual exercises, certain principles of everyday conduct, etc., are expedient, are spiritually rewarding, or arise naturally out of inner need as a human response to the belief in such a being, principle, etc. That was the first definition. Should I go with number two?
You see why I said I couldn't define it? You see how much you just read?
But, okay.
Also, who's the author? Who's the author of it?
Okay.
Oxford?
Which one are you using?
American Heritage.
American Heritage. I'm using Webster's right now. Use Oxford.
You see why I said I couldn't define it?
Exactly. And this is why when we speak on things, we don't put assumptions on it. And your answer to me is you could not define it.
Well, I could, but I don't know if I could give a value.
Because,
it's
right.
very big.
And this is why when we speak on things, when we have conversations, there is no assumption behind the meaning. We go to where we go to the source.
But I don't.
That's
some of their definitions can also be
okay.
invalid.
When you say they, who's they are we talking
That's
about?
why I asked who the author was.
Okay.
Not to. Okay, I don't want to go on a tangent.
No.
But here's another thing. Depending on the date of the publication, there's certain dictionaries. If you look up the word black, you see all types of negative connotations.
Right.
Look up the word yellow, red, and white, and so on. So if that's their, like, obviously that's a racist book. So why would I why would I consider their particular definition if they have a particular narrow-minded
Beautiful, brother.
certain
Beautiful.
things? You understand?
Beautiful
So I'm
understand.
saying it's difficult.
But now you're getting to, now you're getting to
Now
other things.
one of the things with us is that we specify that you never ever get abridged dictionaries. You always get unabridged dictionaries. So unabridged dictionaries will be minus what you're talking about, the racist connotative perspective that causes distortion when they give definitions.
They're called
The same thing what you said. The date is going to specify whether it's unabridged or whether it's abridged. So
part of the thing is going to certain older places that you have to. That's part of what would be the studying part, where you might have to go look digging for like dictionaries from the early 1900s
Or the 1800s, if you want to have one from the 1700s.
so you can get the proper
The proper
meaning, right? Because that's how it is that we get lost. Because
Bro, I don't want to cut you, but I gotta be honest with you, and this may sound kind of ignorant,
No.
but anything that's published in English, like, there's a potential, like, it's a racist
but
system.
who were the first English?
I'm sorry?
Who were the first English?
Well, I'm referring to Europeans.
Right.
In terms of origin, I
So
don't
it's
know.
not them, because when we talk about creation of anything, It's not European that created it.
Is that a massively produced book?
That one is, yeah.
Yeah, that one
Here's
is,
the
yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
If any type of thing that's going to create propaganda that's going against something that they've already established, they're not going to have it spread. That's why a lot of times I notice certain authors have underground books. If something does not like support what they've already established,
Yeah.
for you to get that in masses is really difficult.
Yeah, but that's
For
why.
example, like you see what you're putting right now, what you've been speaking.
Yeah.
You try to get this on any type of broadcast station right now, see if you get accepted.
No, that's why we got our own. That's why we record.
Exactly.
We record our own
Right.
stuff.
Same thing with that's a different form of media. So if it's something that you can find widely anywhere, it's kind of difficult to trust.
I mean, not like
Does
yeah,
that
no.
make any sense?
You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
Yeah,
but-
yeah, I mean, yes and no, because like, for example, like, the Bible's not a bad book. It's everywhere. Anybody could get that anywhere. If you have the mind of a scientist, that's not a bad book. If you have a dumb mind, then yeah, that book's gonna brainwash you or whatever. You know what I mean? No different than dictionary. You can have, if you have
the
a,
origin of the Bible is not English.
say it again?
The origin of the Bible is not English.
No, but regardless of
The origin-
regardless of the
sorry.
language, we're
Sorry,
not
the
talking
origin
about,
of most of these words are not
we're
English
not talking about
either.
Europeans.
The word black, let's go back to the word black. Black comes from the word bleak.
Who's the author of that definition?
Of black?
No, of what you just read.
Yeah, more than likely some European.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's
That
wrong.
doesn't mean
though.
that
No,
it's
I didn't
wrong.
say
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying I gotta be honest.
Mm.
Okay, how do I say this? In terms of learning from myself, I kind of would rather go to my own people as opposed
Find me an Asiatic that wrote a dictionary.
We don't know, because
There's none,
how do you know that?
because there is none.
You can't
The
say
standard dictionaries are Europeans wrote
No,
them.
you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of literature that's not accepted by the the global powers. So there's a lot of things that have tried to make themselves public, but powers that be shut it down.
But again, when we're talking about the powers that be shut it down, why would the powers that be shut it down? More than likely because that individual.
I just told you, it's because if it doesn't support their agenda that they're pushing, like for example, you see what they're doing right now? What if all black people decided tomorrow to join? Wouldn't that mash up their system?
Of course.
Yeah, most
We
definitely.
know that.
Exactly my point. So why
Most
would they pump something that's gonna go against?
But,
what
they,
they've already
but
established?
but again, this is what we're saying, that it's about the individual studying.
Okay,
if
so
the individual
if a black
studies-
person, right, publishes something,
Yes.
for example, like the black laws, obviously, okay, I wanna think through it, I wanna make sure what I'm saying is right. There's that book that one of the brothers here showed me, Black Law,
Yeah,
right? Now,
That's
the
a European
only
back then.
entity that can establish a law is a sovereign of whatever particular location you're
yeah.
So, if a European initially created that book, I
Yeah.
don't know why they would compose something that restricts their ability of control.
But it does. It does restrict their ability of
So
control.
why would they create it?
Can I,
because
It's our studies.
because they have this.
They don't have
Like,
anything, they didn't create
You have to
anything.
remember that
I know
that
that black law book, you're saying a European created that?
Okay.
They composed the laws?
but that's not laws. It's
remember,
definitions.
sorry,
Especially after laws.
It's definitions. It's not.
Okay.
It's not. They made laws and put it in a book called Black's Law Dictionary. Black's
I
Law.
understand, I thought we created that.
Yeah, you might be getting confused by the fact
Like-
that they said
Yeah.
black. It
yeah,
has nothing to do with it. Black might have been the last
Yeah.
name of the European.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
okay.
that's where that comes from. What
Yeah.
it did was-
So can I answer one of your
Yeah,
questions?
go for it.
Now, you premise that they say things and they put us into a box, more or less, right? Like, when they say something about us, it's gonna be negative at all times. Am I getting that correct or no?
No, that's not my
Okay.
point. It's along those lines.
Okay.
I'm just saying if a particular person has a particular view of you,
Mm-hmm,
and it's negative,
mm-hmm.
I don't really think I'm gonna
Okay,
take
so-
what they say.
So let me answer that right now. In this book, this is one of the Black's Law. This is the 4th edition. We
They
recommend,
composed it?
Sorry?
They composed that book?
Yes.
A guy probably
A
named
guy by the
John
name of
Black.
Henry Black.
A guy named, yeah, Henry Black.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, the first one was written in 1891, second was 1910, third was 1931. This is the
obviously,
fourth.
By the end of it, Black is no longer
Okay,
involved,
so-
but Blacks is the name of
The author.
is the
In
name
this
of,
book,
of that law dictionary.
Mhm.
Blacks is what they're calling it. It's like Webster's.
Yes.
Webster's is no longer alive, but you're still getting
Yeah.
a Webster's
Webster's
dictionary.
the author, that's why it's called Webster's.
Right.
The
Yeah,
author
same thing with
was
Black.
called Black.
okay.
Right. But
But that's the guy's name. The author's
name
name
is
is Henry
Black.
Black.
That's what I'm
No, that's fine, that's fine. So,
Yeah.
in this book, they have more in there. In other words, they talk about us. Now, their definition of us is this: an officer in the Isle of Man who summons the courts for the several shillings. The officer is similar to the English bailiff of 100. So, this definition is saying that one of you is equal to 100 of them. So wherever you go, they need 100 of them before they could do anything to you. That's the definition in law.
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna read
No,
it.
that's fine. That's fine. I'm just stating that when quote unquote we go to court, which a lot of us have they've been there. I don't know if you guys want to talk about it. That's up to you.
Actually, you know what, sir? I was making a joke, but I thought...
No, that's fine.
I
Do-
was- Based off what you just said,
Mhm.
initially I was making a joke saying maybe that's why it costs so much pigs, so much why come for one black person.
Yeah.
You know, but actually what I
But
said-
no, but it's true.
Actually,
It's
what
true.
you said?
It's true.
That's exactly
It's true.
right. But,
But you see-
what does that let you know?
What does that tell you?
When you see
All right?
one brother and 50 pigs come,
Yeah.
right? What does that tell you about that one brother? And he's a Moor.
All right. So, in regards to what you're stating on the definition, and whoever is the one that authored it, a word still has to have a meaning. You can't make up a meaning. It still has to have an origin.
Well, yeah, I think that's a
I go back to the word black. Black comes out of German, which comes out of bleak. Bleak means bleach. That's where that word comes from. That's where, in English, black comes from that. That's the origin. That's why whenever we get dictionaries, there's certain sections where it states where a word came from. Most of the English language came from another language. Am I correct on that? I go to the word nice, for instance. I always use this, but we use the word nice right now connotatively in the sense, oh, those are nice shoes, or that's a nice tape, or whatever. Nice means stupid. I call you nice, I just called you stupid. Etymologically. So in today's terms, nice, everybody think, oh, he can just call me nice. Oh, all right, I feel good now. Bullshit. I call you nice as knowing now that I know nice means stupid. I call you nice, I just called you stupid.
And then who does that fall on now? The person who said nice, or the person who said, oh, thanks, or whatever like that, not knowing that they're out to lunch.
That's why when we say black, if I call you black, I call you dead. Knowing that now. Regardless if the definition is right or the definition is wrong, it has an origin.
Is that a connotative form or denotative form?
Which?
Connotative.
That would be connotative.
The true meaning is denotative.
True meaning is
And
denotative.
that is, I think, where the connection comes in when they call you black. If you own black, from the spiritual part, the religious part, you've now then taken on that energy. And that is where I think the awareness and the advancement of us as a people now has come. You're no longer going to let them identify us, first of all, by their names, their European cognitives or whatever they are. And then the second level to that is we're not going to let them identify them, like you say, as black. When you look at black, it's the only one that has all this bullshit after it, with yellow and red and all those things. None of them have that. And then
There's
white,
some negative stuff too, just not
well,
as
not,
negative.
right,
Yeah.
and then white, if you notice, and no European is white, he's calling himself white, and then when we look at what the definition of white is, purity, whatever, whatever, and they're white.
Mhm.
And then we're calling them white. So we're just giving that energy to them.
Which is the next question. Do you look like that chair?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So once you know better, you gotta do better. And this is where I come from personally.
But to be honest with you, I wasn't really going on.
No,
Like, that wasn't the direction I was going.
That's fine.
All I was saying initially is I couldn't define. What was it?
Religion.
yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
very big,
Right.
and who says whose definition counts?
No, but this is why you would
Like,
say,
who gets to decide that my definition is valid? The man.
yeah, no, but it's not his,
Hold on.
definition though.
Hold on.
You're looking at it as
Did a black
did it.
man create that expression, that term that he just read in the dictionary? Was it a white man?
I would say this, that, you said black man, I would say personally, black man didn't create nothing.
If you're saying black man, you mean pale man. So yeah, a black man did create it.
So here's what I think I can explain it like this. I think, like Amari was saying, there's a connectiveness to the origin of the word that usually you will only find the closer you get to that word, you'll find the truer meaning. What the European has done is he has taken that meaning and perverted it to his meaning, so that certain words that have certain energies are then, when you look at it, the European has taken what the real word is,
Which is the connotative.
and then created no, that's the denotative, the real word, right? The real word is the denotative, and then he's created the connotative out of it. So one of the other examples that Amari shows you, or will show you, is that black, the first definition of black might be death, evil, whatever, and then you go 5 definitions down, like going down to the root, you'll find it'll say any Eastern African person. And then when you go to there, it'll connect you, then you go down to the next one, it says black Moor. And then it'll say any dark-skinned person from Eastern Africa. So ultimately what the deal is, they have to use the foundation, they have to use the rocks to build on. And what they've then done is they perverted it and added a lot of their stuff into it to confuse it. And that's where you say, right, they created the new things, but they always had to use the origin of they had to use the root to then create the facade.
Like saying the creation of the definition, right, is not coming from a caveman. Cave people didn't create anything. Everything that the caveman has, he got from us. Everything that he has.
Can I say one? I just want to say
Everything.
one last thing, because I don't really want to.
Yeah.
I'm really not trying to start a debate.
No, it's not.
Here's what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm gonna try to use the term. I've been conditioned to use the term black.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the term more referring to people of color.
Yeah.
Right. Moors particularly. This is what I would say. If you really want to be about your own origin, your own kingdom per se,
Yeah.
then you should use your own elements. Like, for example, like, what I was trying to say is, how come they get to define the standards? Like, I'm pretty sure literature did not exist. Hold on. Literature was not created when the Europeans came, because they have civilizations that precede them.
Right.
They also had literature. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why use their definition when you have your own?
Yeah,
we do have our own. But this is what I'm saying to you.
It's
English,
encoded in the
look at, okay, again, when we go to this is an English one, right? 80 to 90% of the words in here came from another language.
Yeah, Latin.
All right.
European.
It could be
No,
other-
Latin
No,
is
see.
your language.
No.
Come
I
again.
don't know about that.
Right,
That's
well, no.
based on assumptions.
You see what I'm saying? So remember, who is the oldest entity, or I'll say entity, but who's the oldest people on this planet? We are, right? What is the oldest language on this planet?
I don't want to say, because I'm
Because if the oldest people, we have to be the oldest language.
So I'm saying?
One of
Okay,
the old-
what was the language that we spoke of?
Many.
Many.
There's so
Many
many.
languages, but you did say
there's
Latin
no
was,
one.
you did say Latin is one of the oldest, correct?
I don't know about that.
but,
I know it's old, but I just don't know if it
okay,
has
so,
black origin.
Latin,
ours.
that's your language.
Fine.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't. I said I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So what I am saying is this, in regards to the oldest people on this planet, us, in regards to the oldest one, I'll say one, like, let me paraphrase. Latin is one of the oldest languages on the planet, which is what we spoke before you had English, before you had French, before they started calling it Spanish. Latin was one of the oldest languages. That is why all law dictionaries are written in Latin.
Can I see this? Did you have any Latin text so I can see what it looks like?
Black's Law Dictionary.
No, Latin, oh yeah, there's some text in there.
That's,
If
it's,
you look up, law maxims
law maxims are written in Latin.
are all in Latin.
All in Latin. So, I speak,
Because Latin is
Mhm.
the language of law.
so you go to Germany right now. Most English languages came out of Germany.
And an interesting thing is most of the high English end up speaking French. Even
Yes.
before even English.
Before
So
English.
what you find is even in the higher guys going back to England, they're all speaking French.
They're all-
French
Right?
connected more directly back to the Latin.
So,
you gotta get them exactly what
you
you're talking
are
about.
right when you say that these books were written by quote unquote white men in English, but they got most of that wording from other languages.
Question, bro. You know what I think it is, to be honest with you? I don't doubt what you're saying.
Okay,
It's not
that's
true
fine,
because
that's
I don't
fine.
have the facts on it.
Exactly.
If I'm gonna challenge something,
Go ahead.
like, you look like an idiot if you challenge something and you don't have any facts.
Right.
Or ask
That's true,
questions.
true,
Right.
absolutely.
But there's other literature like Coptic, right?
Yes.
Before the
100%.
Arab invasion
Sanskrit.
of Egypt, because
Yeah.
I knew tons of Egyptians growing up,
Mhm.
but they weren't so-called Arabs. They looked like Somali people.
Right,
Right.
There's some
Right.
Absolutely.
different
right.
So
Right.
like their type of what do you call it?
Language or
No, what do you call it?
Hieroglyphs, yes.
Hieroglyphic communication. They have books on that.
Yes.
For example, in East Africa, particularly Eritrea, Ethiopia, they have Ge'ez. They have
Yeah.
their own literature.
Absolutely.
There's over 90 different ethnic groups in Ethiopia alone, not to mention Eritrea. They
Absolutely.
have their own ancient literature.
Absolutely.
Actually, UFT right now has recognized Ge'ez, and they started an English, a Ge'ez course in UFT right now because recognizing one of the oldest languages. Actually, according to Bible chronological,
Chronology,
right? Ethiopia's book precedes Egypt.
Yeah.
Two places I see mentioned, the land of Uz, and then the second, Havilah, then Ethiopia.
Mhm.
The second place is mentioned in Genesis.
Right.
Yeah.
The first two places, and this is chapters before before Egypt.
Right.
So I'm saying, why can't we go to that type of literature?
Of
I gotta
course.
be honest with you. Anything written in English,
Mhm.
regardless, people say it comes from here, comes from there.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I kind of don't trust it.
That's
And
fine.
the thing, hold on. And one thing I noticed with, and I don't want to say this, Chris Rock did say something that's quite true, not for all black people. A lot of us don't like to study. I don't know why.
Mhm.
Because if we took the time to broaden our minds, okay, if you really want to be about ethnic origin, go learn your original language.
Absolutely.
Like, particularly, I don't know where it was,
Well,
which
not-
one it was, because Africa is so big.
So how many languages do you speak?
Well, I'm learning 2 languages right now.
But you started with English, quote unquote, or no?
Unfortunately, because I was here. But I'm
Alright.
still broadening my mind.
Exactly.
So my point is, I'm saying is, if you really want to be ethnic and really delve into it,
Mhm.
like, you know, like, I gotta be honest, when stuff is in English, I'm not saying I can't,
And that's
I'm a
why
little
we
bit
study
iffy.
Latin. That's why we have Latin that we're speaking right now.
but I know specifically those other cultures, those are black. As for Latin, okay, what country did that originate from, the Latin? What country? Africa's a continent, which one? Which country?
Well, regardless,
Regardless, but we're
it's
not.
where we were at.
Where were we
There's
at?
no-
But can you
Like
prove
when
that?
we say like
Do
we
you
have
a
this
tree standing
mentality.
back?
Yeah, like we have this. Our people have this mentality that we're the first of everything, but
Okay, yeah, prove it.
Europeans created something. Like we can't be the first of everything, but then say the Europeans created something. It's like it can't. If the European created it, then that means they're the origin of it, and we know that they're not the origin.
I know they thief enough things.
All right, so if we know that they stole everything,
Latin, yeah, okay, they stole a lot.
Latin is Moorish.
Oh, wait.
Can you prove it?
Yeah, look, I watched a documentary where they were talking about the Kingdom of Congo and how those people from Congo became, like, got transferred or whatever into slavery. And they said when the European man came to see the guys from Congo, they spoke 700 different languages. Latin was one of them, because that's the only, because each, in Africa it's so big, there's so many different tribes. But we're all brothers and sisters. I must know how to interact with you if I see you anywhere.
In some type of,
they know 700.
right? This is the same thing with English. Like
Every
when you look
European
at
knows this.
when you look at like our people look at the English language being this bastardization of languages and whatever, when everybody in the world speaks English. Not everybody in the world speaks every other language. But you can go anywhere in the world with English and they'll be able to connect certain things to what you're saying.
But the reason why people speak English is because of colonization being forced.
Absolutely.
Right, but again,
It's not by choice.
but colonization is not English. Colonization is an act of taking over people's land that's not theirs. English comes out of Latin, which has nothing to do with Europeans.
Hold on, English didn't come from colonization?
The language
people
English.
that speak English right now, they
Yeah.
voluntarily gave up their indigenous language to speak English?
No, because of colonization.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, but
you said it's not this. To me, it's almost one and the
No, but
same.
he said, what he's saying is it's not,
I don't think
it's
so.
not intrinsic to English.
That's
French
what they use.
French colonized too.
I know.
French colonized too.
And
People
so-
speak French.
and so did we.
Haitians adopted French
I
as
know,
their
I know,
language,
I know,
but French is really Creole. It's not really French because there's an origin to it that goes back to Asiatics.
That's what he's trying to say.
So we're looking at oh well, the Haitians, they're sold out because of whatever. Well, they speak the same stuff in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And the people in New Orleans are Aboriginal and indigenous to New Orleans. They never came over here on a slave ship, but they speak Creole.
And then when you trace
Well,
English back,
I
English,
get you.
You know what I mean?
That particular right there is a good example. If you can trace that back to Creole, that dates back to Africa, then you can say.
But that's the same thing we're doing with English saying the Latin.
But
It's the same thing.
so watch, English came from Latin and German, and Latin traces back to, let's say, Moorish Latin. That's what they called it. And what happened was they changed it. They made an edict to say that it would never be called Latin anymore. It would
It's going to be called Spanish.
It would be called Spanish.
Okay, cool. What
So-
African country did Latin go?
Why does it have to come from
It
Africa?
can't, you can't say
Well,
that.
you can't.
He just said, hold on, he just said Creole goes back to what, Congo, you said?
No, I said
It doesn't
Creole
work like that in Africa.
is
Was
the
the origin
But
of.
didn't you mention an African country just a while ago?
No.
Somebody
No, she
here
was
said
saying,
Africa.
yeah,
So she was
saying,
talking
I
about the
said
700 languages
700
that
languages,
someone
and
spoke.
Latin was one of the
Latin
languages
was one
that
of
they
the
spoke in the
languages.
Congo.
Okay, so then that gives,
Portuguese,
hold on, that gives
Italian.
it a location origin, right?
Right. So all right. So that's what I'm saying. So if she's talking about the Congo, and one of the 700 languages there was Latin,
Okay.
wouldn't that mean that
Because that's an ancient language.
that's African language?
Okay, that
And
all makes sense.
I think here could be another.
Yeah, but,
Here could be another example of what
I
the
just said, I'll accept it.
no.
No, that's you know, like, I mean, again,
Here,
back
one of
to,
the things that, sorry, just to cut
Go
you, I
ahead.
think this could maybe explain it. The same way we can't figure out exactly where we came from, Latin could be one of those languages that none of us here have done enough of that studying yet right now, particularly, let's say, because we've got broad stuff to study, to say we traced Latin back to right there, but what we did trace it, like Creole, we traced it far enough back that it goes
To know that it's
back
our stuff.
for our stuff.
They
Right?
held onto it.
Question, English came from Latin. Who particularly actually speaks Latin?
But remember, Latin is Spanish.
And then what they did is
Like when they say when we say Latin, we're looking at 600 years ago somebody spoke this. 800 years, no, it's Spanish. They speak Latin right now. It's just called Spanish. It's disguised as something
It's
else.
a dialect, Spanish, Latin,
Right.
Moorish, Spanish and Moorish Latin are a dialect of Latin. And ultimately what they did, since Latin was our pure language, what they've done is they've hidden it. again, they've taken it and they've hidden it away. And Latin is only spoken in the high things. If you want to learn Latin, you gotta go pay all kinds of money to learn Latin. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what they're basing
That's what
everything
they're
on.
basing it on.
On the
Like
Latin.
for example, they're gonna say, they're gonna say in the Caribbean, broken English, right? Or I say broken English, right? No, but regardless of which island you go to, you're gonna understand the broken English.
And the difference.
Regardless where you go, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago,
bye.
Jamaican, Antigua, whatever,
Cuban,
all these people are gonna know exactly what we're talking about. But when you start getting to the mainland, Venezuela, Cuba, whatever like that, now you have a disconnect in the language.
Is Cuba and Haiti the Caribbean?
Yeah, they're in the group, but really it's all American, really and truly. It's not really Caribbean in that sense.
It
But
could have to do with how the colonization took place and how certain places up here got more of that attention and other ones kept more of their sort of heritage.
I have a real good question,
Please ask.
I think.
okay, before you answer that, right? With the broken English, right? Pronounce that.
I don't know if I can make out all the letters. Is that an I after the
D-U-G-D-A-M-O-U-N-D-Y-A.
Oh, okay. That's
Dogdamondia.
All right.
Wonder.
Dogdamonda.
Dogdamonia, right?
Pneumonia.
Oh, I see. I know what you're going with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Wish I had the card on me to show you.
Hey, my neighbor has a flag, a washing.
Right?
American flag? American flag?
So if we're quote unquote Aboriginal and Indigenous to America, we'll say Dogdamonia. Right? If we're from the islands, we'll say Dogdamonia, which means dog
The mound.
the mound.
Dogdamonia, sir.
Right? We Dogdamonia, so.
Mm.
But that's Aboriginal and Indigenous. That's not Caribbean or broken English.
That's Latin.
Right? That's really Aboriginal and Indigenous tongue. But in broken English, Dog the Mound is Dogdamonia. So, well, which one is it? Is it broken English or is it Aboriginal? It's no different than when we say Mississauga. That's not European.
Let me ask you, like in the Caribbean, isn't it a mixture of French too? 'Cause
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. Patois is, yeah,
Patois is
most
really
definite.
French.
Yeah, yeah, most definite. Right? Which again goes back to the whole thing that we can't say that it's one. Right?
Peace, family.
It's not just gonna be that, it's just one language. You know what I mean? Like, well, like when we say, well, we colonized, and then we say, oh, well, English was the colonizer. Well, nah, French was that too. And certain other language were also. All right, yo, no worries, we'll be here. We'll be here. Give thanks for the bill. Cujo. Yeah, Amari's right there. All right. Every week, yo, we're here, 1 o'clock. All right. Sis, you got
My question was, if Latin was not indigenous language, how was it that the Moors conquered Spain and they never changed? Well, they were all speaking Latin, right? When they conquered?
that was one of the languages.
That's a good question.
So how is it that they conquered, still established with amongst the other people that they conquered,
Because,
still speaking Latin?
which is a good question, more or less. It wasn't called Spain then. That's the first thing. It was Andalusia. Second, they brought it with them.
They brought
Again,
the
they
language.
brought the languages with them. At that time and in dates, different languages were used for different things. Like for math, you use Arabic,
All at the same time,
right?
not different times.
For law, you use Latin. Again,
I wish you
all of
should-
us
you
in this
should
room
explain
right now,
that.
That's
That was my
crazy.
question.
we're doing a math problem, formal problem, whatever. We're doing arithmetic. See what I'm saying? So it's not a matter, as the brother was saying, that we don't have a definite point of origin where it was. We all knew it. It's like
stuff.
we all knew it. we were learning different languages. Oh, I need to go learn math. All right, okay, good. He's gonna teach Arabic now. Go ahead. Because for you to learn math, you gotta know
No, the
Arabic.
numbers, yeah.
For you to know law,
For you to know law, you go speak to any judge. They have to know this book front to back.
For you to know the metaphysics, you have to know, you know,
What do you call it?
whatever Jewish language.
That's all I'm saying.
You
Is
do?
it de facto's Latin,
Yeah,
no?
Hebraic or whatever.
De facto?
Hmm?
Is that like, what is that?
Latin?
Latin?
That's that.
Latin.
Yeah,
De jure? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds French.
that sounds French.
Cool.
Sure, de facto.
So
French too.
again, like I mean, the brother is right in regards to languages. Oh, we don't want it, but you can't again throw the baby out
Yeah,
of the
but what was interesting
bathwater.
with him, he was bringing up UFT running an Egyptian course, which yet again would be
In English.
total, which would totally be like
Yeah.
so.
Not
Right.
Ethiopian.
Right,
in
and
English,
Ethiopians
yeah.
saying
Yeah.
and then
Right.
claiming that UFT would have the
Qualified.
Are qualified.
So
Yeah.
he's qualified
Yeah.
I know
the
it's
English.
Yeah.
But anyway,
The
what,
English
most of a
speakers
lot
are
of these
qualified.
people,
Yeah.
they tend not to want to take those next leaps. You know what I mean? And then they
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's first crack, first swing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Someone's taking a language class, that's all. Someone's learning a new language. So
That's
And
right.
then you know
That's
what? For
fine.
himself, he should take it upon himself to go figure out Latin. We're telling him what it is. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Go do a little internet search.
Yeah, maybe he can teach us.
yeah, because again, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can't say, oh, I don't want to go with their definition. All right, then don't take a paycheck.
Yeah. Or
Don't take a job,
Yeah, don't do whatever.
everything is basic, especially down here.
right? Don't give them your labor. So it's for us, what we have to realize is that all languages, yeah, eventually we have to learn it, but I'm lazy, right? I learn what I need to learn. But we just gotta do what we gotta do, and that's it. But anyway, I was hoping you would stay and we could build a little more later.
That was the
You know
question
what?
for him.
Yeah.
I went to the laundromat and I met two ladies, two mothers, and I was talking to them, you know, and they're real up on me, taking it in to the fullest.
Mm.
And one of the ladies said, my husband would like to meet you, because the things you talk, he's like, well, you see the big guy, the guy was behind me here? That's the lady's husband.
Oh shoot.
And the other guy is his friend. They came to my work Friday
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
for the knowledge, and I give them what I could at the time while I'm working, and then they said they would come on Sunday. And that's why they're here now.
Yeah.
But it was the mother that I saw in the laundry, and they really understand what I was saying, and it all makes sense to them when she said she's going to go home to her husband with it.
Mm.
And then that's why you see this brother here now, and that was his friend.
Good. Good.
Well, his friend knows a lot though. Enough,
Yeah.
enough to ask a little questions, you know? DC's researching. But I know he's gonna go home and be like, oh, he'll be here again.
Yeah,
For sure.
Again, he got hit.
I think so.
We've seen people
back.
talk more than that didn't come back.
Oh, really?
So we'll see. We'll see. So we'll just get our close out. Is there any,
Just more or less family. I want to say thank you to two Moors. I'll put it, yeah, that was for this. This one, yeah. Thank you to Osiris for helping me put the window up. I don't know. Y'all noticed it's up finally. And thank you to Yasun for helping to pay for it. Not here, but he's doing here, whatever. But so we finally got it up. I don't know if Cujo spoke about it as yet, but in regards to Noble Juali Day, so it's going to be on the 6th.
6.
We're hoping for the 6th of January. So we have to pay for the venue and whatnot. If anyone could assist us in doing so, that would be great. We will put more information out within the next coming weeks. Not right now because we don't have the venue set up and we don't have what we're going to be doing there as yet. But once we get everything done, we'll get that information out to everyone. Other than that, stay strong. Peace, fam.
Let's close out. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of
Father of
love.
love.
Truth. Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
To his holy prophet.
To his holy prophet.
Noble Juali.
Noble Juali.
Ashir.
Islam.
Islam.